I think so.
Call this to order. Could I have a motion for the minutes meeting?
I move that we approve the July 19th, 2011 minutes of the audit subcommittee.
I second. Okay, Mr. Mundy?
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Monday Rufus, representing the accounting firm of Monday and Rufus PC. I'd like to introduce one of my associates, Mr. Robert Gonzalez, CPA. As required by Internal Audit Act, Texas Government Code 2102.008, we have prepared the audit plan for fiscal year 2012. We prepared a risk assessment to determine the areas in the Texas Animal Health Commission that should be considered for audit. And based on that risk assessment, the following areas are recommended for audit in 2012. Cash receipts and fee processing, Region 2 office, Hempstead, Region 6 office, Lampasas, and then follow up on prior internal audit recommendations related to public information. The audit was done in 2007, and information systems security, the audit was done in 2010. Your approval of the areas will enable us to commence internal audit activities for fiscal year 2012. I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
No. Any other discussion on this?
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2012 audit plan.
Second. Is that?
That's it.
That's it.
Well, I mean, that was it.
That's all good.
That was a long list today. Thank you, Mr. Rufus. I appreciate it very much. We appreciate everything that you do, and look forward to another year of working with you. So, thank you very much. Any outside comments or? Hearing none. Do I hear?
Move for adjournment.
Second. I think we beat our all-time record.
You may be, since you missed, you may be the chairman, but no, that's not true.
Good morning. I'd like to call the 381st Commission meeting to order. Welcome everybody for being here today. Let's begin the state's business with a motion to approve the minutes of the 380th meeting.
Make a motion.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the 380th meeting. Any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. As y'all can see, Commissioner Dice is no longer here. She has served 12 years, is that correct, Dr. Ellis? And we hope to have some type of appreciation certificate maybe made up for her. And I have not had time to call Commissioner Dice, but we're going to miss her. She was a very good asset to this commission, was involved in a lot of committees. Also, she was chaired our audit committee. And Commissioner Simmons has agreed to take over as chair, and Ken Jordan will take the third spot on the audit committee. So I don't think there needs to be a motion there. So with that, we'll go to Commissioner Simmons to hear about today's audit committee meeting.
Well, I can tell you it was the fastest meeting we've ever had. We only had one action plan. And that was for the, to do a risk assessment on the following areas that are recommended for audit fiscal 2012. Cash receipts and fee processing, Region 2 office, Hempstead, Texas, Region 6 office, Lampasas, and follow up on prior internal audit recommendations. Public information, original report was dated May 16, 2007, and Information System Security original report was August 23, 2010. That was approved, and there was no public comment, so that we adjourned.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the audit subcommittee report as presented today.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the audit subcommittee report. Is there any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Ellis will give us a report of the executive director and approval of waiver requests. Dr. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and welcome back. It's just been a couple of months since we've been here, and but we've had some things go on, and so would like to give you my report at this time. Little bit of a change in the way we're going to do this from the staff perspective, and we continue to evolve and trying to bring you the best report and quality of service we can, so you understand the business of the agency. So today, for the first time, you're going to have less from me as far as some detailed discussion about disease. I can still talk to you and answer your questions, but Dr. Swartz, as always, will give his report. Dr. Cochran will give his report, and then Dr. Hensley, who's now been our assistant state vet over our field for about a year, I felt it was time for him to come up and talk to you guys as well, and he's been around long enough that I think he's comfortable to give you the report. And as you saw in an email earlier this week from me, we have had some reorganization as we continue to try and fine-tune our skills and our abilities and reassess what would work the best for the agency. And so if you didn't see that email, basically Dr. Cochran and Dr. Hensley swapped some duties, and Dr. Hensley will now work with emergency management more, and Dr. Cochran is going to be more involved with animal disease traceability as far as the national rule, specifically because he's also over our computer section, and there's a lot of technology issues. In fact, my biggest worries are on the computer side of that. So you'll hear from each of them, and as always, I'll be available to answer questions and try and give you all a little higher level discussion than down and dirty like I've done in the past. So you see on the page 1 of my report the latest snapshot of our budget, and the only change really is we're a little better able now to quantify the carryover we had in some federal cooperatives and assess the impact of the stoppage of first point testing as related to our budget. And basically, even though we only used April, May, June, July, August, 5 months of the 12 for our fiscal year 12, fiscal year 11, first point testing money from the feds of a little over $1 million, we spent it all. And that's a reflection of the drought. And we have less than a couple $100,000 left of what would have been a full year's money based upon 5 months expenditures. So that gives you a feel for the impact and the number of cattle going through markets. But that did mean we've got a couple $100,000 there we can carry over into this year. So a little bit helped into our new state fiscal year. Our downsizing is complete as of 9/1, and the agency is about 1/3 smaller than it was this time 2 years ago. We're going to continue to evaluate where we go next. As you can see from these numbers, 2012 versus 2013, we're still about $2 million short for next fiscal year. We're okay right now, but between now and next fiscal year, we have to generate either $2 million in revenue or make $2 million more in cuts, and basically the only way to do that is with payroll. We've done a lot of managerial things under the table that I just didn't figure you're that interested in, but things that we've saved money on, different cell phones and air cards and travel and trucks and different things to save money, but we've probably squeezed about as much as we can out of the efficiency side of things. And the bottom line is, whatever we don't see in revenue as an agency will be made up for in cuts of people in the next year. And so we have a little bit of time. I'm not optimistic that there will be any changes on the federal funding. We have stumbled onto a little over $100,000 in some cooperative funds that we believe we're going to be able to access that were surprises to us. New programs, a couple of different ones that are going to help, and we're going to continue to leverage every opportunity for grants and for cooperative funds to help us with our budget. The federal declaration of the fires in Bastrop will allow us to recoup some of the costs we've expended there, which we would have done regardless. When, I think one of the things with emergency response, whether it's a disease or natural disaster, you do the right thing and then you figure out how to pay for it, because you can't. The fire department doesn't ask, do we have the money to go fight this fire? They go fight the fire, and we do the same thing. But the presidential declaration that was made a couple of weeks ago will help us a little bit in recouping our costs there. So there will be a second round of cuts necessary for the agency, and our original goal was probably to do this in October, and I am evaluating whether we can delay that a month or two to take a little better look at the revenue side of things and see if we can assess what kind of money we may bring in with some of the new fees that you're either considering or have already passed. But certainly by the first of the year, we're going to have to make some more decisions on staffing. And we'll do that with all due diligence and all sensitivity and with full consideration of what are our essential services. What is this agency supposed to be doing, and what can we do with the resources we have? And I look forward to your input, and at any time, if you all have ideas or thoughts, please tell me about that, because it's like it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take a village of commissioners to figure out how to get us through this, and I need y'all's support and help in doing that. So we'll move through that, and I think Dr. Hensley in his report later will give you some detailed ideas of some of the impact of the budget cuts on our field activities. And I would say right now, really, we've been able to maintain most of our essential services with the staff we have right now. This first round of cuts, second round, not so much. But I asked Dr. Hensley to just give you a snapshot of some of the things we're going to do a little less of or stop doing, just so you have a feel for that. And obviously, these can always be changed if we come up with better ideas or new thoughts. This leads me into the next part of my talk, which I think Chairman Morales and I have had some preliminary discussions. I think this agency is at a transition point for who we are and what we do. And there's always strategic planning that's done at the agency level. It's required by the legislative process every 2 years, and that'll be next spring when we do that. But I'm required by the legislative process every 2 years, and that'll be next spring when we do that. But I'm suggesting, and I think the chairman has agreed, that we may want to do some internal discussions with a selected number of you, obviously less than a quorum, just individually or in small groups with some of our key staff, and then later with some stakeholders. It's easy to stop doing things, but if you stop doing everything, then what are you doing? And that's my concern, is that we actually plot out, we think through the logic of the repercussions of stopping this or stopping that. And so I think the chairman and I are on agreement that we're going to try and give this some thought. Things have changed, you know, and I can tell y'all one of the things that I'm really focusing on right now, and there were some pretty good rear end eatings that went on this last couple of months by me. Customer service is one of the things that is going to be key to our future. We are regulators, but we are also here to help with marketability and help with quality assurance. And the people that we have left are going to give the best service they can. And if they have to give someone bad news, they're going to do it in a professional manner. So I'm committed on the agency side that our employees will provide the best service they can to you as the industry representatives, but at the same time, I want to make sure we're actually doing what we should be doing, which is not the same thing. There's some issues that have come up, the border issues. We have a number of issues with the border right now. Horses, we're spending as much time on horses as anything right now. There's no funding for horses. The horse industry is very fragmented, as y'all know, and we really need to think about how do we move forward with some things that are important to the horse industry, but there's literally no funding in our budget for that right now. So anything I do with the horse, I'm taking away from a cow or a sheep or a goat. And I want y'all's input into those kinds of decisions. As y'all remember, we asked for money in the last session for pyroplasmosis. It's not going away. It's a long-term issue. We've passed rules that we can now not enforce at tracks for pyro, and at the national level, Texas is really being scrutinized by some states as a threat for diseases and horses specifically that kind of really go back to Mexico again. It goes back to border protection and border security issues. So as we move forward, I would ask that y'all bear with us and help us. We're going to need some input into where we go and what is the product. Also in your book, for the first time, for you to y'all just to look at your convenience. There may be more than you want to see. I've asked our public information officer to put in some examples of social media, our press releases. If y'all don't see our press releases, I want to brag on Bonnie. Bonnie, raise your hand there. She's been on board a little over a year now as our new public information officer. We've been very active in outreach and examples. What I'm going to do from now on each meeting, I'll put in there the press releases that we released, the official press releases. I'll put them in there for you to see. But also understand that we have a number of ways to communicate with stakeholders, including our website. Social media is becoming more and more of a tool for us to get quick information. It also gives us feedback on what people are thinking and what their questions might be. And so Twitter and Facebook, we have a new section on our website called the Veterinarian's Corner, which is a resource for practicing veterinarians. And then as a result of some of the problems we've seen with tagging of cattle going interstate right now with the stoppage of brucellosis, at the request of some veterinarians and industry folks, we put together a 2 or 3 forms of the same information, which is trying to advise and educate cattle buyers about the requirement for official IDs moving interstate, and veterinarians as well, because with the stoppage of first point testing, there's more and more cattle without tags. And I've received literally a number of calls from other state vets in the last couple of weeks concerned about Texas cattle just basically going wherever they want to go because of the drought. And so as we have a challenge again as the agency to work with practicing veterinarians in the state, and that's also one of the things moving forward. Hopefully we can spend more time. Health certificates are a valid document. They're an accepted part of American quality assurance for the health of livestock, and our veterinarians in the state of Texas. We're going to continue to work with them on the importance of those. And then from the cattle buyer side, they just need to understand there are rules and regulations, federal rules and state rules. And we're going to try and do our best to help make sure that other states view Texas livestock as safe, healthy, and legal, so to speak. So I'll stop there. Unless there's any questions, I'll move on to some more specific topics.
How about
Dr. Vickers.
How's the tagging issue coming along?
Well, that's my next topic.
Oh, sorry.
So I'll be glad.
Yeah.
Good idea. Let's talk about tagging. You know, brucellosis, we stopped the testing, the enforcement of the change of ownership of brucellosis testing in Texas for all cattle, not just at markets, but private treaty, wherever. I think in the next few months we're going to have to rewrite our brucellosis chapter, and that's not a small undertaking at all. That's going to take a lot of time and work, and we just literally haven't done it yet, to be quite honest with you. So right now our brucellosis rules are in abeyance. Market testing ended in August, and in mandatory testing on August 1st. And for the month of August, we still tested more cattle in Texas than we did last August, a year ago. So that's a reflection of the drought, and that's also a reflection there was a lot of markets that didn't stop testing. About 15% of the markets never missed a beat. They just kept doing just like they were. About another third, more or less, of the markets in the state are testing young replacement cattle, and then about half, or a little maybe more than half, have stopped testing cattle completely. And it's changed. Some of the markets, their customers impacted their decision. They did something one week, the next week they changed their mind. And not only with testing, but with tagging. There's a few more markets tagging than testing, if that makes sense. There's some markets that are not testing at all, but they are tagging some cattle. And we ask for voluntary compliance. You as the commission ask for voluntary compliance with the continued tagging of adult animals until a decision was made on the national rule, and a decision was made in a timely manner about just the concept in general of tagging. And obviously, you have on your books today for consideration a proposal to require tagging of adult cattle at a market. And I want to stress here, although it's easy to say that this may, if you passed it and then passed it again the second time, the next meeting, would be what we need for our national animal disease traceability rule. The truth is they're two separate issues. This tagging rule that's on the books today is, in my opinion, a reflection of the need for traceability today for Texas cattle due to TB, brucellosis, trichomoniasis, and other disease program rules that we need today. So I want to stress to y'all, from my perspective, that this really doesn't have anything to do with the National Animal Disease Traceability Rule, which is out for comments right now. That rule may never happen, and it may be years from happening. We've been waiting 5 years on a chronic wasting disease rule, and they finally decided the other day they're just not going to do it after we'd seen it written up. So I don't think we can take to heart the fact there will ever be a National Animal Disease Traceability Rule. It may happen, it may not, and really the wild card, there's probably money, to be honest. If the feds don't get the money, they can back off. So the rule you have in place today, from my perspective as your state veterinarian, recommended to you the need for tagging is because we have adult cattle moving to other states and other parts of the state of Texas right now. And if we need to find them later and they don't have a tagging year, we're not going to be able to do that. I've talked to the Oklahoma State vet yesterday at length. They've had 2 traces in this month that were untraceable. One was going to Nebraska and one going back to South Dakota. One was TB, one was brucellosis. Slaughter cattle, complete consignments that were sold to slaughter cattle in other states, and they came in there and they were fed in Oklahoma feed yards, and they left, went to slaughter plant. There's no tags on any of them. So be aware that from my perspective, the tagging rule that I think should have considerable discussion when it comes up is about the need for a tracing now of Texas animals, not necessarily because it'll help you comply with the national rule that may or may not come out. So just keep that in mind.
Oklahoma's requirement is.
Oklahoma requires tagging. Their markets charge $1 a head, and then they do it.
No, but I mean for our cattle going.
Absolutely. Well, there's a rule. That's a national rule that you have to have a health certificate, and then you have to have some form of official ID, either a back tag or an official air tag. That's already the rule. Arkansas and Oklahoma both require tagging of cattle going through their markets right now, so our neighbors are doing that. You guys can decide whether it's appropriate in Texas. My recommendation is yes, and it's just common sense. But we'll let that discussion play out. So the markets right now, Dr. Vickers, to answer your question, I think they're going about as well as they can. You know, it's kind of the wild, wild west in a way. They're all doing whatever they want to do. We're trying to hang in there and provide our service, our customer service, to the markets. We're there in the mornings for the markets that are testing brucellosis, running cattle through the chutes. We're there to provide the follow-up test, which 95% of the time will clear a consignment, let them move. We're there during reasonable hours to permit bulls for trick and for other reasons that need to go to feed yards that are restricted. Where we have changed, what you're going to see now, where we have changed is we're not going to sit there all night long. If they're running 5,000 head at a sale barn, we're going to leave about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. When most of the work is done for the animals that we regulate, we're going to drive off, and if something comes in later, they want to do something after we leave, they're just going to do it. And that's the difference, because before it was a mandatory brucellosis program, now it's optional, and so that's part of our thought there. I don't have the money to pay overtime. So what we're trying to do is work with each market owner to come up with a way to be there when they need us to be there. When it's the most likely that we need to write a permit, or when are they going to sell the bulls that don't have a trick test, or when does the veterinarian need us there if he has a card positive. So that's our challenge, is to provide the best service we can and still be efficient and effective, and not run up a lot of overtime, because that'll eat our lunch in a hurry.
That brings
Yes,
up
sir.
another question. You know, recently with all these cattle sales, most of them are going out of state. Some of them are tagged, so they call us to call a veterinarian on a Saturday after a Saturday sale to give them a health certificate. We got to tag them, but say there's not a veterinarian available. I've had some calls way far off because nobody else was available. Are our personnel going to do that?
No, sir. First of all, I laid off all our field vets.
Yeah.
So the only veterinarians I have left are regional director. I have 7 regional directors and the staff in this office. And we don't normally write health certificates for private treaty transactions. They're going to have to get a veterinarian to do that. And this is part of the problem is what we're seeing is a lot of them is going on. And this is the complaint I'm getting back from other states is your cattle are coming into our state and they're not legal. And I said, I know. We're monitoring right now. We started earlier this year a spreadsheet system to monitor health certificates and compliance with health certificates. And there's 2 different issues. One's Texas animals going out, and the other's animals coming in that need to meet our requirements. And in the department that evaluates health certificates, we had a reduction in force as well. So I don't have the staff to really look at every health certificate, but we're trying to generally monitor quality of health certificates. And I've asked the people that are left back there to start a list. And I'll to be honest with you, the first list we ran was about that thick of veterinarians that wrote illegal health certificates, Texas going out and coming in. And so part of our education is to work with the veterinary industry in Texas. I can't do much about other states other than send back to them when we catch them in non-compliance. But we're going to try really hard first to educate our veterinarians and our cattle producers about the requirements to move interstate. And that's what I was talking about. And it's actually in your book. There's an example of the flyer that we're going to try and put out to markets and have some of them attach them to the buyer sheets of cattle buyers and remind things. And things have changed since August 1st. The cattle don't have official ID. And if you're a veterinarian and you don't have the official IDs, you can't really write a health certificate properly or the back tags.
Tag 'em.
You got to run them back to the chute. And so there's been some of that. Some of the markets have solved it on their own. So that's a long-term problem. That's a change in our relationship. We will not write the health certificates. I mean, there's literally hundreds of thousands of health certificates. We can't do that, and that's a private business transaction. But my concern is trying to protect the integrity of Texas livestock moving across state lines. And I can tell y'all, I'm not making this up, that other states are looking at us right now going, we know you got a drought and we know you're bleeding cattle. They're going to other states, but seriously, y'all got to stop this. And so that's going to be my job and our staff to try and work with our practicing veterinarians to use our public education, work with Extension and other organizations, the different private organizations and industry groups to try and keep our reputation as good as we can. So.
If it ever rains, we're going to be dealing with them coming back.
They're going to come back in, and we're going to want IDs on those animals too. And so there's your answer to how it's going to the market. I think it's going okay. It's going. I mean, there's not been any fist fights that I'm aware of. It's been lots of cattle run through the chute, lots of cattle sold and moved, and I think this drought is going to affect marketing in Texas like the 50s did. It's going to change the face of agriculture, in my opinion. That's just my I'm not an economist, but I believe it will. And I think so. We're in the middle of a significant event in Texas agriculture as far as livestock. There will be a tagging rule later, and again, I think there should be some pretty frank discussion. Maybe some folks in the audience want to come up and talk. But in my opinion, this tagging rule that's for your proposal today is not related to the National Disease Traceability Rule. It's related to the fact that we're selling millions of cattle right now every day in Texas, and they need to have a tag in there so we can keep up and not be held liable when they find TB in South Dakota and they blame it on us. And they will. They will blame it on us. And that leads me into my next topic, which is animal disease traceability. And USDA finally did release the national rule for consideration. There wasn't a lot of surprises in it. It basically says if you move across state line, you've got to have a tag. If you don't. There's one of the, it's a 114-page long document. It's on our website. We can print you if you want to look before you leave today. If any of y'all would like us to print you out one and use our printer and our ink, we'll be glad to do that. There was not a lot of surprises in it, and it's obviously going to have a lot of discussion. I think rightfully so. The comment period on that's going to be extended beyond the original November 9th date, probably into the first of next year at least. And then you can anticipate USDA waiting 6 months to a year or longer to decide what to do with it. And I think money may drive some of their decisions. So I still say we're a year or two away at earliest for any real impact to Texas. But we are going to start discussions, and I want to mention that the U.S. Animal Health meeting that's coming up in Buffalo, there'll be basically an entire day on this topic, and we intend, me and my staff that will go, there's only 4 of us going this year instead of more. The 3 assistant state vets and myself, and we're going to try and make sure we network with everyone we can, talk to other states, talk to industry groups, talk to the feds, and figure out what's going on. As you can see in my bullet points here, the challenges for the state of Texas is going to be really how good of a program do you want? Because truthfully, compliance with the national rule is not going to be that hard if all you want to do is just meet their rules. The question for you, is that good enough for you as an industry and as a commission, or do you want to do more? And I can't answer that question. From an agency standpoint, what I can tell you is one of the things we're going to have to decide is what do we do account-wise. We have 32,000 accounts already in our computers from the old NACE days. We can transform those pretty easily into an account from a premise ID, and those people are already signed up to use 840 tags or for us to give them free tags. The other option is to outsource this to another party, a private organization, we've been approached by folks in that regard. And the third option is to do both. We keep our program, we let someone else also assign tags, and then we try and put them back in a database at a later date. Software is going to be key. The Oklahoma bought a $100,000 software program to manage their tags. I don't have $100,000 right now. So we're going to have to see what the feds will give us for free and what kind of deals we can make. But software technology is also part of our decision. And then distribution of the tags. USDA says the tags will be free, and they are free, but they got to get them to the people who need the tags. Now, if you buy the 840 tags, the USA tags, the electronic ones, they can be shipped to you, or you can just go get them. But if you're a producer that wants to utilize the free Silver Bright tags, as they call them, then we've got to get them to you. And obviously we'll have folks at markets and we can use those for distribution points, but that's not going to be good enough. So we'll be in talks with our other partners, stakeholder groups, who else wants to give out tags, who do we let assign a number or not. And then of course data entry of those tags. If we give you a box of 100 tags, we really need to put in the computer, you got those tags. And so that's going to be part of our key, and again it's going to come back to money and staffing. So we're going to start that process though and have some of these discussions. After U.S. Animal Health, hopefully before the end of October, I'm going to try and set up a beef cattle group just to bring those key organizations to sit around the table, or we do a conference call and just kind of flesh out some thoughts. And I'm anticipating some significant differences in opinions of how this should be done by our stakeholder partners. And I'm going to look to you guys to help decide where do we go from there. So that's what we have in mind, and I think we'll probably need 1 or 2 of y'all for sure involved with that at the chairman's pleasure. And obviously starting with cattle, it'll be someone in that venue. The interesting thing about the animal ID traceability rule for horses, they're going to allow pictures to be official ID for horses. So if the picture is official ID, then you got to store that picture. You have to have a computer. I think we already do that with llamas. They have whorls, they have a unique, and we've allowed llamas to move interstate with just a picture of the llama, and that horses are going to let them use pictures. So there's all kinds of different issues, different species that we're going to have to deal with. I want to focus on cattle first, but I do believe we have lots of time, but we need to go at least start having some discussions about that. Move on down, I'm going to be one of 2 state veterinarians involved in a national TB review of Mexico. It's going to start in a couple of weeks. Right now I don't have to go to Mexico. I'm just going to be non-travel related, but Dr. Hartman from Minnesota, who's the chair of the TB U.S. Animal Health Committee, and myself will be the 2 state vets, and obviously we have a lot of stake there. And we're having a lot of problems, and I think Dr. Swartz will tell you later, we got 2 new traces yesterday, TB traces. This is not going away. If we don't, TB is going in the wrong direction. I'll just tell you all that right now. So, and it's just a matter of time until we get another dairy or a big beef herd involved.
What are these 2 going to do?
Sorry?
Are they 2 different?
They're feeder animals. One's Chihuahua, one's Durango.
Oh, they're from Mexico.
Yeah, they were Mexico, but wherever they've been, that's our job to figure out where they've been. Slaughter traces. Cattle fever ticks. Our numbers are still high, but the good news is, and actually when I say that, we're almost exactly where we were this time last year, but almost all our cases are in the systematic zone. We've pretty well got our free zone cleared up, which was our focus, as it should have been for our tradability. And ease and comfort of our trading partners who are worried about it. So we're working closely with Dr. Varner at USDA Veterinary Services, who's sitting over there, and ARS, our research partners, on a couple of different trials. We actually have started one field trial, which is a company out of Sealy that is wanting approval to sell in the systematic zone tubs, ivermectin treated molasses tubs, where cattle can self-medicate and basically kill the ticks by licking on the product. And we're doing some field trials, and we're optimistic that maybe by next summer that'll be finished. We also have entered into a cooperative agreement with the Texas Department of Agriculture. They had some end-of-the-year money that they were willing to share rather than give it back. And so we've got $100,000 as a pass-through cooperative we're going to give to the ARS Kerrville Research Station to speed up some research they're doing on one of the two ticks, the microplus tick, the tropical fever tick that's harder for us to control. They felt like they could hire an extra person and do some more work, which could lead to a better vaccine. And so we're going to pass through $100,000, and then we have another $100,000 that our agency is going to get, and we're going to buy some equipment with part of that. And then our plan is to either buy some more Cuban vaccine if it ever gets approved, or buy some other vaccine to use in the systematic zone. We're going to hold that money. Right now, the Cuban vaccine that we bought and done some trials on, it's still not been approved for use in food animals, and it's also not been analyzed. They're still trying to figure out what exactly is in it. I think they do have a lab now, and so until I have some comfort that that vaccine is safe and is approved for food animals, and we're not going to move forward with the field trial. But I think by later this fall we'll have that approval. We're going to use it in some pastures down in the South Texas and some infested pastures. In the meantime, we're in some fairly detailed discussions with a drug company that is working on a fever tick vaccine in Australia that's based upon the same antigenic core as the Cuban vaccine. And if we can get them to cut us a deal, so to speak, we may be able to get some vaccine at a cheaper, reduced cost in exchange for them acquiring some data, some field data. And I'm much more comfortable putting an Australian vaccine in an experimental basis than the Cuban vaccine. And so I think one or the other, my plan is by next summer we're going to have a vaccine. We're going to have a vaccine trial going on in South Texas. I'm optimistic that maybe within a couple of years we'll have the trial over, the vaccine, we'll have a vaccine and an ivermectin product. And then Dr. Varner and I can just work on the management part of things and really can get ticks controlled and keep them in that systematic zone. So those are some, it's just a slow process, but we are working on that. I want to let you know that I am optimistic. Border port issues, nothing's really changed. The good news is the Amistad facility near Eagle Pass that we thought USDA was going to close, they were able to negotiate a new lease. And that facility, my understanding is it's going to be, Kevin, open until December of 12 at least, which gives us a good backup for crossing cattle in a safe and efficient manner. So, and thanks to Chairman Morales for participating in some of the communications. He was a key player in helping just talk to the folks on the Mexican side, because the facilities are owned by people in Mexico. So the border port issues are kind of rocking along. They're going fairly well, and USDA is still trying to enhance their facilities and do some work on them, but I'm comfortable with that. I've got on here elk movement, just to let you know, and Commissioner Winters is aware of this, that it's like a train headed to the tunnel, but it's not a tunnel, it's just black painted on a wall. We have less than 10 elk producers in the state signed up now for status. You passed this rule 2 years ago. We gave them another year. There's people with elk are not signed up and effective January 1. If they're not in our program for CWD, they're not going to be able to move elk, period. And we cannot get just no one there. It's just been like pulling teeth to get them signed up. And we're going to continue in the last 3 or 4 months here to try and find elk producers and people that are hunting elk that trade them on the side. That's going to be illegal. And try and tell them, you need to sign up now for this program, or you're not going to be able to move elk legally. And there's a lot of people with elk. There's more than 10 people in Texas with elk, and they all are supposed to be signed up. So, and Commissioner Winters and Dr. Hensley, I think, and Swartz are going to probably convene a group of some industry folks to talk about our CWD, especially in light of the fact that USDA has formally announced they're not going to have a rule. We've been waiting on a rule, and there's no rule, so basically the state and industry needs to decide what they want to do from a disease standpoint. And I think obviously there's some discussions going on with the deer industry in general. After this session, they're regrouping and evaluating some of the proposals that passed and didn't pass related to white-tailed deer. And there's a lot of activity, and this is also probably what I should have mentioned as part of our strategic planning moving forward. I think there's going to be more and more opportunities and expectations for us to become involved in exotic wildlife and cervid issues. And sorry, did you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say, there's down in our area, there's a lot of elk running loose where they dumped them out 4 or 5 years ago, and some people are requiring elk, you know, and they hunt them, but you know, they're not moving them.
Well, you know, the thing is though, if they want to catch one and sell it after the 1st of January, really,
They're
you know
gonna
how
have
they're
to.
not going to be able to do it. They're going to be in violation of our rules unless we go to slaughter. There's not a slaughter plan in Texas, so anyway. Do you have any other thoughts, Commissioner Winters?
I've been in touch with selected members of the industry. The industry leadership is very much aware of this deadline. They're doing their dead level best. We've got all these horses here to water, but we're having a lot of difficulty getting some of them to drink. I'm very glad that Dr. Hensley and Dr. Swartz are working with me to reconvene the working group. We can only do what we can do. We'll put the word out. The industry then will have the ball in their court. Those that wish to participate will be great partners with us, and those that don't wish to participate will probably be out of business. So, thank you. Y'all, when you're all ready to roll, just give me a whistle.
I'll end my report. I've had 3 waiver requests since July, and approved 2 of them. One's I let a virgin bull come in with a trick test pending. The test results were off before the bull got here, so that worked out pretty good. If you remember, we don't accept virgin bulls anymore, but I did take that into consideration and the risk of letting them come on, because the bull had a ride. I don't remember where it was coming from, but it had a ride, and I said, all right, come on. The test was pending. The other one is technically I had to waive our rules on fever tick inspection protocols to start the research project in South Texas with the ivermectin treated molasses tubs, and so I have waived the normal procedure, so we can see if the cattle eating the ivermectin through these blocks if it's effective. And so we have an infested pasture down there, and there's not any adjacents at risk. And so instead of doing the normal 14-day or 28-day scratchings with Declamax or Coral, we're looking at these tubs to see if we can control the tick. So that was technically a waiver of our rules. And the final one was a guy with an infected bull. Tested it twice for trick. It was positive, and he asked, "Can I just see if it'll spontaneously cure itself?" And I said no. But he was requesting 8 months of quiet with time for the bull just to see if it would get better, and it's not considered a curable disease. So I told him no. But I get those kinds of requests. That's the end of my report. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And as I said, you're going to hear from all 3 of the assistant state vets with their different things. They're all very busy. It's a big state, lots of going on, and proud to have a full staff. And it takes us all to figure this stuff out. And as always, we'll be able to jump in and answer questions at any time.
What's the latest on our proposed charge for brucellosis testing? We still on line for January?
Well, it's on your rule. It's a proposal today for a rule. Dr. Swartz he's over the labs. He's gonna talk about it. You know, I have mixed feelings about that rule, to be quite honest with you. I think it's gonna provide a disincentive, and it's gonna cause a lot of people to quit testing. But we need the money. I mean, literally, and that's the sad thing about it. And we're looking at maybe we'll come up with a couple $100,000 in this fiscal year, and probably less than that next year, 100,000, 150, because you're going to see people that are testing now. When we charge them $1, $1.50, whatever we decide it will be, they're not going to do it anymore. And I'm really sad that that's the case, because we should continue testing. We shouldn't have quit brucellosis testing. We're still a high-risk state. And but the rule's up for discussion. Dr. Swartz will have more information on that, and And the bottom line is the brucellosis program is now a voluntary program. So if you want us to run a test, we should recoup our costs. We're not going to make any money at it, but just recouping our costs is, in my opinion, good enough. So we're charging the bare minimum to get our money back, and without making everybody quit, because there's a level that you're not going to pay.
The feedback I'm getting, in particular the certified herds. I've got one producer, probably has close to 700 we test every year, and they're wanting to know, but they're not going to quit. I haven't heard one producer or certified herds serviced by other veterinarians that have contacted me and want to know what's going to go, what's going to happen.
Should be after the first of the year.
Yeah, their producers are still going to probably keep their certified status, even if it goes up $1,
Well, it's
$2
a marketing
a head.
tool. It shows good management or better management, and it shows that you're paying attention to that.
Or whatever that's worth,
Whatever it's worth.
Decision making, all of the certified herd people that I've talked to, even some of the big operators, are not going to stop.
And we've seen, I think we've seen the value of CAFID vaccination here in the last few months. There's how many states require CAFID? 7 or 8 or 9? I don't know. We have a list. There's 8 or 9 states that require an animal to be CAFID vaccinated to go into their state. So we have a lot of mature cows, 10-year-old cows, have an orange tag in there. They're able to go to a state where they couldn't go otherwise. So we're seeing vaccination, and we're seeing certified free herds as marketing tools that other states value, because they all recognize that if there's any state that has brucellosis left other than Yellowstone, it's us. And they don't want our cattle without some kind of a little higher level of either a test or a certified free herd and/or vaccination status. So, and Dr. Swartz will have more on that. That's it.
Anything else? Any questions? Bonnie, I appreciate that, and I like, Dee, that you put that in there. That I'd like for all the commissioners to see the hard work that she does.
Bonnie was raised in Brooks County. I just had to bring that up. They've got a good work ethic.
If y'all never looked at our Facebook page, just go to our website and click on that F, and it's a very interesting dynamic that I don't even understand, but it works. And yeah, it is here. So we're going to embrace it and use it for what we can.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the actions?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the actions of the Executive Director for the period from July 20th, 2011 through September 20th, 2011.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the actions of the Executive Director. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 carries. Dr. Schwartz.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Morning.
I think as long as there's someone standing here doing this report, we'll be talking about tuberculosis. I think it will outlive us. So I started out my report talking about tuberculosis, and we're sitting now where we just finished a fiscal year. So our fiscal year is September through August. And looking back over the year, we had 10 slaughter lesion cases in the last year. We've completed investigation of 8 of those, and all 8 of them either had Mexico tags in them, or they were in consignments of cattle that were from Mexico. So I think we know where our problem is regarding the TB program. The two cases that are open, we got late in the year, one in August actually, and so that one is going to be of Mexico origin already, so I can tell you 9 of the 10 last year are going to be of that origin. That particular case we're working through with a little more difficulty because the tissue that's sampled is now compared with tissue taken from the tag on the animal to make sure we got the trace to the right animal. In this case, they didn't match. So we got to do a little more investigation at the slaughter plant, try to match up carcass weights and things like that to make sure we're in the right herd of origin. Fortunately, that animal was in the middle of a fairly large consignment of Mexico origin cattle, so we think we're pretty certain that we're on the right track there. Dr. Ellis mentioned that we did get notification of 2 fed cattle lesioned animals yesterday, 2 different consignments, both at the same plant, both at Cargill's, but they're from different consigners. And so with those, we'll lead back to, we'll have to track back to see where those cross the border with Mexico and where they were in between if anything got exposed.
Andy, what does that put us at for the year?
That puts us at I believe there have been 13 already this year, animals. They're not, some of them, one of them had 4 lesion animals in one case, so I'm counting animals, 13 lesion animals so far this year. Well, I say that so far, I'm sorry, we just finished up last year with 10, we got 2 this year, so I guess
Okay.
12.
Fiscal, okay.
Calendar years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Switching to brucellosis testing, I just threw some numbers at you there. Of the 2.8 million tests we conducted last year, that would be tests at markets and at slaughter and voluntary testing, that herd certification we talked about a minute ago, private sale test, diagnostics for whatever reason. Of those 2.8 million, we had 188 animals that were not negative. Basically, that meant we had to do some additional follow-up, some additional testing, and 58 of those 188 were determined to be reactors. Some of those were in those that affected herd down in Starr County, obviously, but there were some others that primarily that were Brucella suis affected. They had swine brucellosis. Dr. Ellis, as you know, we've had a lot of cattle leaving the state of Texas going to greener pastures, and a number of states in the Northwest, especially that are receiving the cattle, have a requirement that those cattle be vaccinated. Some of them say they have to have a legible tattoo, in other words, some proof of vaccine. So we had numerous requests from individuals wanting to ship cattle to those states that those be vaccinated. Veterinarians be allowed to vaccinate those animals. Our policy before had been that we would only allow that vaccination in affected herds or in special circumstances, but we put together a policy that we think is it's based on the USDA standards, on the Uniform Program Standards. Dr. Hensley led the effort to write that vaccine protocol, but it basically allows private veterinarian to do that vaccination. They're supposed to draw a sample and brucellosis test the animal, but they don't have to have results before they vaccinate. So basically they draw the brucellosis sample, they vaccinate with a 1 cc instead of 2 cc dose. And that will get our cattle into most states that have a requirement. A couple states have a requirement that a full 2 cc dose be used, and that's certainly allowable. We just caution folks that increases the chances for abortions due to the vaccine.
So this is adult?
This is adult vaccine, right?
California is one that wants everything to be vaccinated.
That's right. California, Oregon, the Dakotas, Montana, Idaho. Yeah, so there were. We got a lot of requests, and so what we did was put something in place that we don't feel endangers the cattle at all. It allows the commerce to go at normal speed, where the veterinarian can just roll on and bleed them and vaccinate them and go. We do ask that a special tattoo be used, an R for the RB51 and the AV for adult vaccinate, and then the last digit is the year that they're vaccinated in. So, and if they already have an official ID, we just ask that vets write down that ID. Don't give them a new one, and don't put in an orange tag. We just ask them to put in a silver tag or one of those bright tags when they adult vaccinate, if they don't already have a silver tag in them.
Do you think the difference between 1 cc and 2 cc will keep them from aborting?
No, I mean, I was hard pressed to find. Well, in fact, I haven't found any hard information on how much abort. We were asked, well, what is the danger? How many calves are we going to knock out doing this vaccination? And the literature I found was all about how it doesn't cause abortions.
Yeah, I've given it to a lot of 12-month-old heifers that were bred, checking their track first and then vaccinating them. And I think I've had one out of hundreds that may have aborted.
What we did was to just to be safe, we looked at what USDA requires. It's a certain number of organisms in the dose, and if you calculate out the concentration of that vaccine, 1 cc gets us well above that dose that's an official vaccine under USDA standards. That's how we arrived at that. It's not switching to trichomoniasis. It's not written in your report, but I just wanted to point out that I looked at the numbers tested over this last year. In March of this year, we peaked out at 5,400 bulls were tested in the state, 5,400 in March. Last month, in August, there were fewer than 1,000. So Some of that is seasonal, people testing bulls and spraying more, but a lot of it is they're just not keeping replacements, not just due to the drought and all. And just the raw numbers show about 2.3% of those bulls positive, whereas last year it was running about 3.5%. So is that real progress on disease? I don't know, but it might be having a little effect there. On swine, I just wanted to briefly mention that your last meeting, we got to announce that Texas was recognized as brucellosis-free regarding swine, brucellosis in commercial swine. We've been asked by some individuals about the continued enforcement of our change of ownership test requirement, and so today we've taken the approach that we will continue to require that test at change of ownership too. And the idea is to protect our domestic swine from incursions of brucellosis from feral swine. But certainly, if the commission intends to take a different tack on there, we'll follow orders there. Equine, I can't have this meeting these days give this report without talking about equine piroplasmosis. It's been a little over 2 months since the rules you passed went into effect, requiring that the veterinarians use the pyro test chart when they test animal horses, and that horses entering a racetrack have a negative test. We looked back to see how many horses in Texas had been tested, and since the outbreak in South Texas in November of 2009, there have been over 30,000 horses tested in Texas. I would assume some of them were repeat animals, tested more than once, but most of them were tested for initial time. So what did we find out of those 30,000 tests? We found 75 horses that were not related to King Ranch, basically not related to that South Texas case, and 10 of those were horses imported into the U.S. on that CF test, and the other 65 were quarter horse race horses primarily. So, just some developments there. We asked for record all the horses that have been imported into the U.S. over a 10-year period on that CF test that we know missed infected animals, and we did get that report. And we intend to start with the year 2005, which was the last year that the test was used, and contact those owners and offer them a voluntary test. And we'll gauge response to that and results of that test to guide our future actions there. One thing we are doing regarding pyro at the USHA meeting, we're going to be asking for a national policy on these horses that have been treated in a recognized treatment program that go negative on the blood test. So now they're negative for all intents and purposes. They're on every test we've got, and so we're going to ask that all states there be a policy, uniform policy for all states to follow, and we're going to approach that through a resolution at USHA. I didn't put down EIA there, but I wanted to mention that it's still out there. We got a report last month of an EIA outbreak in Arkansas. There was one herd, about 83 animals, and half of them were affected, 40 out of 83. So it was kind of a long-standing herd. They'd been together a long time, but it was a little nest there, reseed the population. Now, if you will, I will switch to an update on the state federal laboratory. At the last commission meeting, we announced that we were going to close 2 of our labs. That closure has taken place. That was to save money, and we were anticipating a drop in the testing volume. And unfortunately, the weather drought has led to high numbers of animals still coming through the markets and going to slaughter. The market testing numbers did drop about 40% and if you look at July, there were 128,000 animals tested at market. When we get into August, the voluntary month, there were 77,000. So that was about a 40% drop in the number of animals tested, but still a lot of animals tested, 77,000 tested voluntarily. However, when you look at the total volume of samples coming into our lab, that includes slaughter samples too, the volume only dropped 11% there. So we're still seeing a lot of animals coming through slaughter and be tested there. So that's put a lot of pressure on our staff at the labs. We went from 4 labs to 2, from about 27 employees, down to 17, handling that high volume. And it's it's kind of like you can sprint for a little while, but not the whole race. And so they're sprinting right now to try to keep up. And if the volume continues, we may have to look at adding some technicians to the work staff, but hats off to those folks who are still with us and doing such a great work with their resources available. Just some other topics in addition to the brucellosis testing that we're doing at the lab, the gamma interferon tuberculosis testing, the parasite ID that we're doing, and the pseudorabies testing. We've had several other projects underway. One is to attain approval to do EIE testing at the lab, and we intend to test only samples that we collect. It wouldn't be samples for the public. And we're in the process of conducting a check test now. We should have that approval very soon. We are also seeking recognition as a National Animal Health Network lab for pseudorabies testing. We've talked about that at previous meetings, so that's so we can continue doing our own pseudorabies testing. And we feel like we can test more samples that way. We have that call tomorrow afternoon, and we expect approval. We've had an on-site review, and we just have to prove that we're doing the things that we said we're going to do, and we expect to get approval soon. We're also upgrading our lab data system, our lab information management system. And if you pass fees for brucellosis testing, that will allow us to dovetail in the fee processing with this new lens. It will allow us to bill clients. And we're looking at, as Dr. Ellis said, we looked at the cost. What's an appropriate amount to charge? And what we wanted to do is cover the cost of testing. Basically, we're not in it for a profit, so we cut it down as close as we could to buy the reagents to pay the people to do the testing. So what we're proposing is basically $1.50 for that brucellosis test is what it amounts to, and a $5 lab submission fee. So if you sent in one sample, it cost you $6.50 with $1.50 for each sample after that. Now, what happens if that sample if it's a suspect or reactive? We just basically throw the additional test in on top of that. We just do those at no cost to the producer or the veterinarian. Now, if the request comes in for another test, like a plate or a tube test or something that's not our normal screening process, we will run that test, say for export or something. We'll just charge an appropriate fee for that, and you'll see those numbers in your proposed rule there. So with that, Chairman, I'll wrap up my report and take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Andy, real quickly, Dr. Ellis, on the farm brucellosis thing, we probably need to get a couple, 3 producers together and sit down and revisit all those regulations and see what we need to do to make sure everything's right. Whenever we have a chance.
Well, and absolutely we'll do that. Just keep in mind that the brucellosis-free status is for commercial herds, of which we have 9 in the state of Texas. For the other thousands that are out there at risk of feral swine, that's been our position, that they're probably still a risk, but we'll absolutely sit down and visit with you about that. Right now, we still have the funds to do the testing in markets. We weren't sure we would. I'm not sure we will after the second round of cuts, but absolutely we're here to talk with you and other industry about where you want to go, and I'll have my opinion, and you guys, and we'll work with the chairman and you, and if y'all want to make changes, we'll take a look at it. And this is part of what I mentioned earlier. What do you want us to do in the future? I mean, we can stop everything if that's what you guys want. So I hope we can have some good dialogue about risk versus fiscal reality versus the expectations and the challenges of the industry to stay in business and keep some balance there.
And we've been getting lots of calls back and forth, what are we going to do? And I think it's just appropriate that we sit down and work through this, so because the situation has changed, and so we have a unified voice on what we're going to do.
2.8 million tests in fiscal year 2011 on brucellosis in cattle. I mean, $1.50 a head. That's
well. Some of those are slaughter, though, right?
Yeah, that's slaughter also. Oh, okay.
It's about half and half of the way it's been.
But still at $1.50.
1.2 markets, 1.3 million slaughter. So the slaughter samples we do under the federal cooperative, so we wouldn't charge for those. We tried to estimate, how many tests will continue. Say in this month, 77,000 tested voluntarily at market. What if it drops to 50,000, or by next year, much lower?
That range, there's not going to be any. So
So I mean, it's hard to estimate how many we're going to, how much testing volume will be there.
And I'll say I haven't been convinced I wanted $1, and we're probably losing money at $1, but I think psychologically my position has been that I don't want people to quit testing, so the $1.50 is probably the right amount, but if we derive some revenue, say the Mexican feeder thing, or if we come up with some money some other way that where we can get by, I want to charge less, because I don't want people to stop testing for brucellosis, but we're going to have to balance the fiscal reality with what it costs to run it. But I'm not opposed to coming back and lowering that if we can figure out a way to make everything work. I mean, it's just like balancing your budget. We just got to figure it out.
A lot of veterinarians have already upped the fee on testing in the country just a little bit, because they're getting people prepared that we may end up having to charge for that test. I've heard no opposition to it, so, I mean, I'm talking about a couple of dollars a head, on little consignments, big consignments too, so.
I guess bottom line, and I'm not positive about this, but maybe Ken could help with this, but our brucellosis testing after the mandatory word was taken out of the rule reduced 50% in these extreme drought conditions. In our preliminary meetings with the livestock market groups, thought that number would be more like 30. And I think 50 is a good number, but that was a free test, right? So I agree with Dr. Ellis. We want to really monitor that. In these extreme conditions, if we have 50% of these cows still being tested, I think that's a very good thing. And as the conditions can get better sometime in the future, that number should go up if we don't charge an exorbitant fee. Anything else? Thank you. Dr. Hensley? It's good to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. This is my maiden voyage here, so bear with me a little bit. I'm going to talk first on some animal health field activities, and then I'll discuss a little bit of an update on the wildfire situation that our folks have been involved with the last few weeks. You've got a page in there that lists some activities that we feel like we can stop doing and others that we can reduce doing. None of these things we actually want to do, but because we've got fewer people in the field, we've got a second round of cuts coming, which probably will take out a few more of our field people. We had to look at all the things we do and try to come up with a list where we prioritize what we think we can stop or reduce without having a significant impact on animal health here in Texas. And having said that, I want to assure you we're not casting a blind eye to any of these items. We're still going to be looking, watching, and if there is a problem, then we'll be involved with that item again to a higher level. But day to day, it's things that we believe we can, like I said, stop or reduce. And I'll just sort of go through these, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Number one there is delivering ID tags to dairies, and by that I mean in the past we have physically driven to dairies and delivered their tags to them. We just don't have the people out there now to do that on a day-to-day basis. Now if an inspector's driving by a dairy on his daily routine, I mean, we still will stop and do that. Producers can come to the livestock market the day our inspector's there and pick up tags. They can come by the inspector's house, or they can come by a regional office. We're going to provide that service. We just won't be able to physically go to all the dairies and deliver their ID tags to them. Number two, support for USDA fever tick infested herds and the ivermectin treated corn deer feeding program. We had 4 temporary inspectors that were on yearly term appointments, I guess you could say. We had to lay off all 4 of those, and those people were 100% fever tick corn feeding positions. So we don't have them anymore, so we won't be able to provide that support to Dr. Varner's group down there in South Texas. Now our Region 5 folks that are still left, as they have time, we can assist somewhat, but we won't have dedicated people there doing that anymore. It's probably kind of a minor thing, but these EIA negative test documents, we spend quite a bit of time in regional offices filing and disseminating those things. We felt like we really benefit little, if any, from that, so we're just going to box them up and they'll be housed at the regional office. We can get our numbers from laboratory reports, so we don't feel like we really need to do that any longer. Verification of these trick permitted bulls that come from out of state to certified feeding facilities. Those bulls are supposed to come on a 127 and an entry permit. In the past, we physically followed up on that, made sure those bulls are where they say they're supposed to be. We're not going to be able to do that for every case anymore. We'll still probably do some spot checking on those, but I've said we're going to stop it. The paperwork trail is there. If we feel like we've got a problem, then we'll go to that facility and we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. The epidemiology on the trick positive herds, we tossed that around for a good bit of time. Dr. Schwartz and I, Dr. Ellis, our field folks, and we came to the conclusion that that does take a lot of time to do those epidemiologies, to map them, to verify the neighbors, addresses, all of those things, and notify them. We're going to stop that, at least temporarily. We don't feel like that's going to truly have a negative impact on the trick program. We're still going to spend the time we need to work with that infected herd that has those infected bulls. And hopefully, we're going to gain more benefit from that than the time we spent doing all this other stuff. And I'm not saying the epi wasn't important, but it was one of those things where we had to prioritize it, and we felt like we could stop that but continue working with the infected herd owners. The pyroplasmosis test requirement for racehorses, Dr. Schwartz talked about that. We don't have the people to really enforce that rule. We don't have people to go to the sanctioned race courses every day or every week and check paperwork on all of those racehorses. Dr. Ellis and I met briefly with Dr. Quirk, who's a racing commission veterinarian, last week. And what we're going to do is try to get with all the sanctioned race course officials and provide some kind of training to their gate guards who actually supposedly examine that stuff when those horses come to the racetrack. And by doing that, hopefully those folks will know how to look at a pyro test chart, how to look at an EIA test chart for the information they truly need to be seeing on those horses. And then we will go periodically to those race courses and do some spot checks ourselves. We just don't have the people to truly enforce that rule as it's written on racehorses going to these sanctioned tracks. We sure don't have the people to go to these brush tracks. That's still an issue we're looking at. It's not really a safe place for our people to be on some of those tracks. So we're still trying to come up with how to address the brush track issue. But for sure, we will be working with the sanctioned tracks to try and help us enforce this rule on pyroplasmosis. The TB gamma interferon, the Bovagam test, which is the blood test for tuberculosis, which is the follow-up test for on a cow that was positive to the caudal fold test. We've been doing the majority of those tests ourselves. What we're going to do now is turn that over to the accredited veterinarians and ask them, when they're reading their caudal fold test, if they've got a positive response, they go ahead and pull that blood sample then, and they can submit it. And we're working on a protocol to get out to all the accredited veterinarians that are doing this so they know how to handle the blood sample, how to keep it cool, paperwork, and all that stuff. So we're hoping that our accredited veterinarian is going to step up and they're going to basically take over that part of it.
The biggest issue is the lab only processes those tests on certain days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so if you're reading caudal fold on a Friday afternoon and you have a responder, you're going to have to go back on Monday. And we've been doing it just to solve all the shipping problems and all the lab coordination, but it's expensive. We're spending lots of time and money, so it's going to go back to the producer and his veterinarian. You're going to have to work out a way to get that follow-up test in.
mean, a lot of times the accredited vet is closer to the herd than one of our folks that has to drive a considerable distance to get out there. So I think it's been done in other states and it's worked, so I'm hoping that the accredited veterinarians are going to help us out here. Again, we'll work with them on what they need to know and help them with shipping and so forth. But I think it'll be really a win-win for all of us. Those are 7 things that we believe that we can basically stop doing, and we're not going to have a big impact on animal health here in the state. And we'll still be monitoring these, but we just won't be out there on a day-to-day or a regular basis. Now, this last list of items, it says things that we're going to reduce doing. If we're going once a month, maybe we're going once every 6 months now, that type of thing. The first one, we spend a lot of time on our fowl registration program. And these folks that sell live chickens or birds are supposed to have registered with us, and they have a little card they carry that permits them to sell these birds to the public. We go to flea markets, trade days like Canton, other places. We go to some livestock markets, sell birds, and we're physically there checking people's credentials, basically. If they don't have them, then we sign them up because we're there. Our animal health or livestock inspectors spend a lot of time in some of the regions doing these things. We've looked at that. We've looked at the impact it has on protecting our commercial flocks, and we felt that we can reduce that from having them at a sale every week or every month, that we'll do these at random now. We'll spot check people. We're not going to let them off the hook, but we just won't be there on as frequent a basis as we have in the past. And again, we feel like that's not going to really have a big impact on the protection that this program provides for the commercial poultry industry. Verifying TB testing of baby dairy calves. These are calves that come into the state before they're 2 months old, so they're underage for TB testing. We track every single calf right now to make sure that calf gets tested when it gets 2 months or a little older. That takes the equivalent of 1 full-time livestock inspector to do that. Plus, it takes a tremendous amount of time in our admin techs, mainly one, to get all this stuff entered. Talking with Dr. Williams, talking with Dr. Ellis, Dr. Schwartz, we all feel that we can reduce that to a more of a random type monitoring of those calves and still not have a negative impact on our TB risk here in the state of Texas. The majority of these baby calves are going back out of state. They're coming to calf rearing facilities. They reach weaning age, they ship them back to New Mexico and other states. So by doing a random check, we're still going to be on the farms. We're still going to be looking to make sure they're getting done, but not tracking every single individual calf that comes through. We're going to reduce the inspection of feral swine holding facilities. Going to reduce the inspection of feral swine hunting preserves. Going to have to reduce the amount of time we spend at fairs and rodeos, checking papers, checking Mexican steer, rope and steer, papers. It's not that we're going to quit. We just won't be able to visit as many rodeos, team roping events, and so forth as we have in the past. So hopefully, still with the random, they're not going to know when we show up. Hopefully, we'll still have close to the same impact we've had in the past. Yes, sir.
On these reduction of visits, are you going to try and establish, like on live bird markets or anything else, a minimum frequency of visits per annum?
We are on some of these items. Now, on the live bird markets, what I've asked our folks to do, and really that holds for all of these, if we've got, say at Canton, if we feel that we really have a risk there of a lot of unlicensed bird dealers showing up, I told them, y'all can spend the time you need on that facility. So we're going to have to sort of pick and choose the ones that we feel are at higher risk. So we may still be there every week for a every
Well,
month.
you're referring to the ones in Houston primarily, the ones that sell birds.
Yeah.
He's talking about more of the trade
Yes,
days. You're
they're-
talking about, we're going to focus more on the live bird markets than on trade days. I mean, there's still a higher risk, so.
The actual
That's-
live bird market in Houston, there's 4 or 5. We're probably not going to reduce our visit to those because we do feel like there's some risk there. And right now, because they know we're coming, their paperwork is improved, their traceability where those birds come from, their head count on birds out there in the pen, all of that is improved when we started here about 6 months ago, going to once a week, actually, to those. So talking with Dr. Mahonky, who covers the Houston area, he said, I really don't want to reduce the actual visit to those bird markets in Houston right now, because he said, we really increase their awareness of what we're trying to do in their cooperative. But some of the others, we will not go, maybe not very frequently to them. So you're right. We're going to pick and choose some of those. Now, the feral swine, there is going to be a minimum. I've asked them to go at least once every 6 months to those, not every 30 days. And if we've got one where we feel like there's really a problem there and a risk, we'll go once a month. We can go once a week if we need to. So we're going to have to reallocate how we look at things and how our people function out there. But to meet all of these deadlines and parameters that we have now, we can't do it. So we've got to change the way we think about some of these.
We certainly do understand the necessity for a reduction simply because there's only 24 hours in a day. But having been in several of these facilities, I do, as well as the feral swine thing, I do think it's very important that those folks on the other side don't lose sight of the facts that we are still going to come by and check.
Right. You're right.
Because there is, especially with some of the disease issues that are facing us, not only in the fowl, but pseudorabies, etc., it's very important that people realize that we still are a presence there, not only from the regulatory side, but also to keep the confidence of our trading partners that we are still doing our job.
That's correct. I agree with you 100%. And that's why we'll try to continue to look at these, and our directors, regional directors, have the ability to do what they need to do. If they feel like there's a facility that is higher risk and there's problems there, they can have their frequently.
Thank you.
The inevitable end result, though, is that we will see an increased need for compliance activities, because when we decrease these inspections, you can anticipate either misunderstandings or intentional compliance violations because they know we're not coming around. And so I'll just tell you, within a year or so, this is probably part of our long-term strategic decisions to make. I see us probably hiring another compliance officer. I think that's going to be one of the results, is we're going to, there are more and more people are going to know we're not there, and they're going to take chances, and when we catch them, we're going to have to do something with them.
And we cannot allow our inspectors and compliance folks to establish an easily discernible pattern of inspection.
That's correct. The key word's random. And I've told them that over and over. We want to be random. We don't want to know we're going to show up the first Monday of every month. We want to do it at random, so there is some accountability there that they need to have their paperwork or whatever in order when we show up. So we'll have to kind of play these by ear, but we are looking and listening and watching, and if we need to modify these, we can. This is just a beginning list of what we thought we can change and, like I said, not have a negative impact on animal health here in the state.
Is there still federal money for the fowl registration?
No. That I know of.
Matt, I don't know, it's been reduced. I don't know if there may be a little bit.
With positive for avian influenza.
And that's what we use on these supply flocks that go to the actual, what I'd call a live bird market.
So it's been cut?
All our cooperative agreements have continued to go down each year. And Dr. Varner's in here, I assume that's probably going to be the track record over the next few years.
Yeah, it's been zeroed out. We don't have an FY12 budget yet. but the preliminary budget that was reported out of the House Agriculture Committee zeroes out our AI funding for next year.
But that's different than
Fowl registration.
Yeah.
Fowl registration has been, we have charged a fee historically. The commission just recently passed a slight change in the fee structure. So we see about maybe $40,000 in revenue from that. Maybe, depending on how we run the program, may or may not, or currently does not cover the cost of the program, but it is helpful to us.
Yeah, that's a fee we have, not a cooperative agreement fee, so maybe I misunderstood you, but it doesn't cover our manpower cost to go out and actually enforce that.
There was something like 200,000 in there for the AI testing, wasn't there?
In the past.
Yeah, but they cut that on.
Well, if you look on my report, the first page, you can see we're down to less than $1 million total for all disease cooperatives. And it was at $6 million just 2 years ago. So you can just anticipate everything's about zeroed out. If not, it's pretty dang close. Brucellosis is the last thing left of any significance.
So I'll finish up on this kind of quickly here. We're going to reduce our visits to approved feed yards. Again, if there's a feed yard that's having some issues, if they're having some interstate movement issues, then we'll be there more frequently. We'll be there till we get it resolved and work them through those issues. But the ones that are doing what they're supposed to do, we're not going to be by there as often. So we're going to have to weigh some of those things, and the guys and ladies that are playing by the rules, we're not going to be there as much. Probably don't need to be, because they're doing what they need to do. The ones that aren't, we're going to have to spend probably more time, and like Dr. Ellis said, maybe more compliance time there to work through those things. On-farm testing of the live bird market supply flocks, that's not the market itself, that's the flocks that supply these birds. We're looking at the possibility maybe reducing those. Now we test them once a month. Can we do it once every 2 months? We haven't decided that yet because we don't want them to think that they're going to be able to, you know, be off the hook, because those tests are important. And we'll just, that's just on the table to maybe reduce that item. Again, we talked about fowl registration and those visits. Presence at horse sales. We're probably going to reduce the amount of horse sales that we have an inspector at throughout the whole sale. There are some horse sales that are problems. They don't tend to deal with the EIA test documents like they should. They get a sizable number of interstate horses in those sales. We're probably going to continue presence. We will continue presence at those sales. Some of these other smaller sales, they do what they're supposed to do. They do have an accredited veterinarian there on sale day to pull blood on horses that don't have an EIA, horses that don't test. Those sales, we're probably not going to be there every sale. And if we are, we may only be there for a couple hours and then we'll be gone. So we're going to reduce those. Something I will discuss just briefly, it's not on your list there, but because we lost all of our field veterinarians, we've been working with Dr. Varner and his crew to utilize their field veterinarians to a higher extent. We've always worked together on issues, but now we're getting them more into the fold of truly having possibly assigned counties where they're responsible for those activities, whether it's state or federal, in those counties. And that'll help us somewhat fill that void, not totally, because we're still minus, you know, those 4 veterinarians. But by working with the USDA colleagues, we can help fill some of that void there, which I think that's going to work well. All right, we'll change hats here a little bit. As Dee said, I'm now doing emergency management. I'm sorry Amanda's not here today. She's attending an emergency meeting in Atlanta. I was going to let her kind of go through this because she was very instrumental in helping oversee our response to the wildfires that we've experienced here the last few weeks. And it started the day before Labor Day when these fires broke out. We had Region 2, 4, and 7 that had sizable wildfires that they were dealing with. It involved Cass and Marion counties. It involved, of course, Bastrop County, which got the most publicity And then we had Montgomery, Waller, and Grimes County that also had fires that our folks down there were dealing with. There were some little bitty fires in Upshur and Fayette County, which did contact those county officials, and they told us that because of the size of the fire and so forth, they didn't need any assistance from us in those counties. We kindly coordinated the state animal response team members. Amanda had conference calls with them on a daily basis there for a while to keep everybody on the same page and working together with these fires. What our people in the field were primarily doing, we were helping with displaced livestock. We carried portable corrals to various areas and set those up so we could house cattle, horses, sheep, pigs. We had a variety of stuff. I didn't realize we had so many donkeys in the country out there, but we had a lot of donkeys at some of these holding facilities. Primarily, it was the equine species that we had, but we did have a number of sheep and goats and a few pigs, actually, that showed up at them. We did quite a bit, especially in Bastrop County, escorting producers back into the restricted areas that had livestock that survived the fires, but they were back behind the roadblock, so they couldn't gain entrance to it. Our folks would physically escort them through those roadblocks so they could get back in there to care for their animals. And it was, I can tell you, I was over there a couple of days, and it was greatly appreciated by those producers that we would help them do that. We also provided information and helped address some of the carcass disposal issues that were in the counties. We helped at the feed supply points. AgriLife was pretty much manning and running those things, but our folks helped them with that too. We had AgriLife, we had TDA, we had our producer groups like Independent Cattlemen's, the Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers, Texas Farm Bureau. All of those agent groups were kindly involved, and we helped. ICA, yeah, mentioned those. And we helped with the livestock agents, the deputies in these counties that were dealing with these livestock issues. We also had a person down at the State Operations Center downtown here. USDA helped us with that too, so we had a person there, either us or them, each day that was over. This was the first true emergency where the Texas A&M College of Veterinary Medicine's emergency response team was actually activated. And they were called in by Bastrop, and we helped facilitate some of that, went by to make sure they had what they needed. It worked fine. I think they were glad to finally be on a true emergency to see how things were going to work. And you know, we found some things that we can all do better, and we'll have after action meeting to look at those things. But A&M did a great job, and I think they were really appreciated. They saw about 148 animals, both small animals as well as livestock when they were there. And then private veterinary clinics in the area also saw additional animals. So it helped relieve those local practitioners of some of that burden of triaging these animals, and then they were sent, if they needed to be sent for more in-depth treatment, they went to some of the local clinics. Some of them were sent to Austin. So just to close up here, if you look at what the State Operations Center reported, I think yesterday, that Marion and Cass County fire burned about 41,000 acres, and they consider it contained. The Bastrop County was about 37,000 acres, and they now consider it 95% contained. And the ones, Montgomery, Grimes, and Waller County burned over 21,000 acres, and it's contained. So right now, our response and role in most of these three bigger fire areas is either done or very minimal at this time. So I'm going to close with that, and if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, I've got one comment I'd like to make. Dr. Hensley, you and your people generated wonderful praise and comments that were passed to me from residents of the homes that were affected, from producers in the area that were there, and other agencies. And without fail, everyone that talked to me commented most favorably on how seamlessly we integrated the activities of all people and what a tremendous asset you were. So please take that to your people. That is one attaboy. You done good.
I appreciate hearing that, and I'll definitely will make sure they.
I had the same report.
Thank you very much.
Well, I don't live close enough to any of that to get feedback, but I've witnessed some of that driving up yesterday from Smithville to Bastrop, and if you haven't seen that devastation, and I'm sure just driving up that highway, we see the tip of the iceberg. It's total, and I know all help that was given is deeply appreciated. Those folks need lots of it.
Appreciate that. I did go a couple of days, and Russell carried me and Amanda back through some of the heart of the fire, and I've seen wildfires before out west, and I've never seen one. It was black. There was not a green, brown, any other color, and it burned everything there. And the homes were piles of ash. There was no structure left to them. And the cattle out in the pastures were charred. You know, it was pretty sad.
For a fire to jump the Colorado River a couple of times, and you could see where it went across 71 4 lanes, just like it wasn't there. So that was a pretty big deal.
It was. It was a big deal, and I appreciate hearing that. I know our folks worked hard.
Was there an estimate on the cattle loss?
Not yet. I've asked in fact, during the fire, I met some of the DPS helicopter pilots and asked them while they're flying if they could get us just an estimate, and they said no. He said it's all black, and I can't tell a cow from a bale of hay, and he said if I slow down too much, I stir up too much ash, and he said if I can, I will, but he said don't hold your breath. So I'm sure we will get some more accurate estimates out there, and we'll let all of y'all know.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Cochran.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Got a few pages here for you, basically 2 sets of papers. Both begin with that THC budget title at the top. They have a date 9/15/2011 on them, but one is for the year 2012 and one is for the year 2013. Dr. Ellis summarized most of this, I think, with his opening chart there, kind of showing the budget trend, but this gives you some specifics of the additions and subtractions. On the 2012 number, the remaining budget number, it's mid-page, the $95,000 figure is in parentheses because that represents a shortfall. Our shortfalls this year in 2012 have been somewhat mitigated thus far by the layoff, the reduction in force that took place at the end of this last fiscal year, and also in combination with that, carryover of federal funds across the biennium. So that's the only type of funding that this agency can carry forward, and we did as much of that as possible. And again, I always commend our financial services team because they have a very, very intense balancing act to pay all the bills and everything that comes in, even from the end of July, just paying bills from livestock markets. We're finishing out that mandatory first point testing. It's just a real, and timing all this with USDA and submitting for cooperative reimbursement. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work, and that's kind of where we stand for 2012 right now. We have had a few, as Dr. Ellis mentioned, unexpected federal cooperatives for special projects that are one-year type projects, and we don't anticipate those recurring. We haven't built in significant fee revenue into these estimates right now because we just are a little uncertain on what that's going to be. Conservatively, maybe $200,000. That said, if you turn to the 2013 front page, after looks very similar. You see that the shortfall could approach $2 million or $1.8 million. So with a year to plan for that, it's a huge difference. And really, what contributes to that is an anticipated shortfall on federal cooperatives again. It'll be kind of a double whammy. We won't necessarily be able to carry as much over to 2013, and we anticipate our next award in April, this coming April, will be at least a third again as small. And from what Dr. Varner said just a few minutes ago about the budget coming out of the federal, out of Congress, sounds like it could be that, and maybe we weren't conservative enough. And that's a little, that is worrisome. And not to mention the 1.8 million there. So we did some scratch work on the whiteboard out in the break room there. There's some variables, but maybe $200,000 in fees right now if we see that. So let's see. Thus we are continuing planning for a second reduction in force. We simply have to. Our budget used to be a smaller percentage payroll, and right now it's about 75% payroll. So we've really squeezed the rest of the agency for all it's worth in travel and efficiencies. I mean, I would really challenge any private industry to you know, of the size and scope of this one to meet our efficiencies and what we're trying to squeeze out of this place as far as getting the work done and still paying all the bills. So again, I have shifted. My job has changed a little bit with taking on traceability, and we'll have to see what comes, again, as Dr. Ellis said, of the federal rule that's out there as far as what's coming down. Again, a little bit different issue, certainly a different issue than what we do in state to handle our traceability and disease concerns, but it is a very confusing thing, just the federal rule and what can come of that, and it does require preparation and time. It does require time to get ready. There are a lot of technical challenges along with on-the-ground challenges in getting tags distributed in cattle's ears and getting them read. I mean, how does all this happen? And working with partner organizations and having the databases in the background. So I applaud our IT team because I feel we do right now have a very capable group. They can look at things like this and figure out number ranges, et cetera, and how to deal with that, because we're not just ultimately talking about cattle. If this system comes into play, we're talking about all species. So we have to be able to accommodate that number someday. We can't start off with a smaller system and then have to change it radically, because that typically doesn't work with the just on the number side and on the databases. The staff services department also under me, we distribute health certificates. We have the commission elected to bump the price of health certificates up, so we saw a big outflux of health certificates up until the end of this last fiscal year as veterinarians had heard word of that. So they've been pushing those out, and that department's doing a really good job on the efficiency side as well, separate from just health certificates, and doing more just-in-time supply. And really we're watching our inventory and trying to lean that out as much as possible for the consumable supplies and other goods that the agency consumes in its daily work.
Matt, I'll jump in there and just say I think we're, you know, I've asked Matt to take a look, and I think we'll see this USHA, but we're going to have to move to electronic health certificates. I see a day where veterinarians not going to be able to order paper and we mail it to them anymore. And there's a process underway to develop a national health certificate, one health certificate for all 50 states that we've been involved in. And I'm encouraging him, maybe not the next meeting, but by next spring, we really as an agency are going to have to look at our own electronic health certificate and cut down on all this printing and shipping and mailing. I just don't think that's the future, and so we're going to be looking into that. And Dr. Vickers will be working with you and TVMA and others to.
This company is already calling veterinarians wanting to promote that.
So we have some challenges there with technology, and again, Matt's the right guy to do that, and our agency's going to have to move forward in the 21st century when it comes to health certificates soon.
You know, we pay a pretty penny right now just to print them, which is a cost we don't really recover, at least on the books. for a pallet of health certificates. We order a pallet at a time. There's so many that go out, especially come stock show season. And again, in August, kind of an extraordinary influx with the change in the price, and people wanting to stock up on sometimes $1,000 worth of health certificates for one veterinarian. So there's been a lot of shipping there. And the ECBI thing is maybe where we can go. Tennessee is kind of pioneering some of those efforts. They're implementing a completely electronic CBI right now. And Dr. Logan up in Wyoming has spearheaded standardization of the look and content that will be on, perhaps on a nationally accepted certificate of veterinary inspection.
How soon do you want to visit that?
Well,
They've called me 3 times last week.
we can, it's, what is it? It's number 3 on our priority list for our IT department. I mean, it's within the next 6 months. We've got some couple other things I want them to finish, one of which is streamlining our paperwork of tracking our hours so that we can save some costs and some money there. But maybe by the end of the year we can have some discussion, but I'm concerned, I don't want to overload our computer guys because we want to have about
Can I have
handful
this
of
guy
them.
talk to you?
Yeah, just, there's the
I
man,
haven't
tell him
talked
to call
to
Matt.
yeah.
And we'll start on it. We're going to have to think about it before we can actually do it, but I'm just acknowledging within the next year for sure we're going to have to make some changes, I think.
Yes.
I'll have him call you.
Perfect. You ready for that? If y'all have questions.
I'd just like to say, in light of everything that's transpired in the last 6 months here, with all the budget problems and constraints and all the hard decisions that have been made here, I'm sure it hadn't been a lot of fun some days for a lot of employees to come to work, but I think everybody that works here is to be commended for stepping up to the plate.
Hear, hear.
I totally agree.
I appreciate it, and I know all the folks in the room and out in the field do, so thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the administration budget status report as discussed today.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the administration budget status report. Is there any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Matt, we'll move on to item 9, please.
Yes, I won't go into detail. Some of this, you'll see health certificates. You'll see some detailed finish out of our last year's capital budget expenditure. So I can take any questions on these items.
Just one thing, Matt, on the accounting software, that one package for $50,000, $10,000 or greater contracts, is that strictly just a software package? What's in there for 50 grand?
Well, yes, it's a more or less, it's a proprietary budget-oriented tool that interfaces with the uniform state accounting system, which is pretty much every state agency has to play with that system, I mean DPS to us. And we have a very diligent staff, and they stay extremely, they're extremely taxed in what they do in working and doing a lot of hand entries and tracking all of our budgets. So this offers that. It's the setup. It is a one-time, pretty much a one-time charge, and there is some funding in there to have their person come out and set it up all on the computer. So it's not just here's a box of your software to put the CD in and load it on your computer. Good luck.
There'll be sufficient tech support, etc.
Yes, sir.
Should be included in it. I just thought that was a whole lot for a computer program.
Well, we tried to whittle them down as much as possible, and this is on the DIR, so another state agency that lists all this type of technology things. They've contracted with this company, so it was already on the books for state agencies.
Thank you.
Any other questions? How about a motion then?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contracts and purchases request for the period from July 20, 2011 through September 20, 2011.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the contracts and purchase requests for the period from July 20, 2011 through September 20, 2011. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Gene.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Today, a number of rule proposals. As have been alluded to today, two of them are focused on fees, as well as one on the issue of identification. The first one I bring to you today is with this new Chapter 33, which is our fee chapter, and this first proposal is our lab fees. These are the fees that would be associated with the services we provide through the testing at that brucellosis lab. As you can see on the actual rule proposal itself, provides a variety of schedules for activities or work that we do in this regard in support of this program. And so these fees are intended, as Dr. Ellis noted, to try to help recoup the cost, but be not only competitive, but still make it worth the effort to have animals tested. And so with that, I bring that to you for your proposal. If you have any discussions or anybody has any questions.
Are we going to talk about brucellosis first?
What do you mean talk about it first?
As far as the proposal,
Yeah, the first one up here, well, the first one's the lab fees. So, and it has brucellosis, which is the name, it also has pseudorabies. I mean, I don't know if you want to go into each specific fee, to be honest, I'd have to defer to Dr. Swartz, because some of these tests, I don't
Most of these tests, the most common will be the one, the RAP test. That's our normal screening test now. Most of these other ones are tests that can be required for international shipments and are not used as often, but they're different levels of difficulty, and that's why there's different prices and cost of the reagents. Number B there, the RAP test, and this is the maximum fee. Obviously, we could do something less if we wanted to, and that's what I alluded to. But the screening test, Andy, right, that's the RAP test now. So it's kind of like a simple card test, basically.
What do y'all mean by the card test in here, $2?
Some countries and some states require a card test as part of their entry requirements, and so if they ask for that test and our guys have to run it, it takes about 15 minutes to run the test. You gotta get a little toothpick, stir and do all that stuff, rock it and mix it up. That's the cost that we're proposing to charge for that test. We won't normally run
all blood samples. Just
No. This is in the lab only. This is not market or any other thing. But some countries, especially, they want some weird test that we don't even think is any good anymore. But if they want it, we got to run it.
Yeah.
And we work with Dr. Varner's folks, and they have to authorize that we did what we were supposed to do on the international shipments. So this is lab charges only, not anywhere else.
You want a motion?
Yeah, this
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we propose the amendments to Chapter 33 fees located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code as discussed today. I further move that notice of the proposed amendments be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period.
Second. Been moved and seconded that we approve item 10A, Chapter 33 fees. Any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Commissioners, the second rule package I bring to you today is also still located in Chapter 33, the fees. This is for our herd certification. You'll probably where we provide a variety of disease-free status programs that follow national standards, and this allows for people that have these kind of animals to have them enrolled in this, and it makes them, it's a marketing edge, it's an opportunity for them to move things interstate, and otherwise they might be required to be tested. As you can see, we have a variety of them. I believe there's a total of 10 of these programs with a variety in herd size. I will note this is one as we tried to establish the fee. We had a lot of practical discussion on, each one has a little different dynamics, herd sizes and stuff, but I think when it got down to it, the most pragmatically simple way to do it was just to put across the board one. It's easiest not only to manage, but I think for sure it's being practical. So what it was $100 when they apply for the program, and then that would be reassessed when they're recertified for those steps.
So does this mean for a recertification of a brucellosis herd, cow herd, there would be a $100 fee for that recertification plus a per head cost for running the samples?
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's right, because they're going to have to get their samples tested.
And a vet fee.
And a vet fee, right.
We anticipate that a lot of people will quit doing this. We don't know how many, but for the ones that want to keep doing it, it's a voluntary program now, so.
Yeah.
And it's for their own marketability.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, you can. It's never stopped you in the past.
Yeah, but I'm trying to be better. Hard to do. Old habits hard to break. This is a tough time for everybody in this state, in this agency, and in the industries that we represent. I think we all understand it and appreciate it. We are, under your leadership, doing the very best job that we can do. Dr. Ellis and his staff are making wonderful bricks to have no straw. Some of our industry partners are not real happy with us. I'm sorry, boys, this may not be exactly the cup of tea that you want, but we have to do the very best job that we can to ensure that the products that are produced agriculturally in the state of Texas, over which we have responsibility, continue to be accepted in interstate and international commerce. We have to do some degree of testing. We have to do some degree of monitoring to fulfill the oath that we took when we took this position. And unfortunately, the funding that we used to enjoy is no longer available. I know that some of the people in the service industry right now are not real pleased about this increase in cost that they will have to bear. Some of them will no longer participate. Some will continue because they see that there is an economic advantage by being a part of our program, and it gives them a good deal more market access than some of their competitors. If anybody in any of these industries take offense, I am sorry, but we're doing the best darn job we can do to keep everybody in business. If anybody's got a problem with this, I wish that they would contact me and let me discuss it in a rational manner with them. But I take great offense at certain folks coming up and telling me after the fact what a lousy job that we're doing here. You got a problem with it, boys, bring it up first, and we'll work it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a motion, or do we have further discussion?
Like on the service again, that'd be $100 every year when they,
Any
and
program
of course,
that
the
we
veterinarian
administer.
goes out and makes the inspection.
That's a separate fee. We
That's a
have an
separate
inspection
fee.
fee. They can use their own private veterinarian. They don't have to use us, but we're going to charge.
Okay, I mean, now, can the veterinarian, sometimes some of them live off somewhere else and everything. I submit all the paperwork. They've got their inventory. We submit the inventory sheet for them and everything. Do we go ahead and maybe make that fee for them? Pay that fee to the state office? I mean, to the
There's
regional
two
office?
fees. One's the fee for the people right out that door to administer the certification program, send the letters, look at the numbers. The other fee is an on-site inspection. I'm not sure if I'm confused or what, but
My understanding, if they're gonna try to, they're in a program where they're gonna try to achieve the D status,
right?
okay? They already pay Parks and Wildlife a fee every year.
Correct.
200 online, 400 if they send it in, right?
Right.
That's their deal. And we're gonna charge them $100.
Correct.
Okay? Now, the private veterinarian charges his fee for going out, the mileage,
Correct.
going out and making the inspection. My question is, some of these producers want us to fill out the paperwork and submit their inventory. They're giving us an inventory every year anyway because they're letting them control drugs. See, we like to have an inventory in their packet.
Okay.
So in other words, like, I submit my, their inventory and their annual application, I pay their $100 fee.
Well, if you want to pay
Yeah,
it, I mean, we don't care who pays the $100.
Yeah, but do we pay it to the state office that we submit the paperwork to?
The paperwork is going to go to the regional office.
That's what I meant.
The fee's going to go
Regional office.
right to this office. So there may have to be 2 letters mailed if that's the way you want to do it.
Okay, I see.
Because our region.
See, as it is now, we send it like I send mine to Beeville, you know.
You still will.
Yeah, okay.
And if you gave Beeville the check, they'd give it to us, but we would prefer you mail it or email it or electronically pay it, whatever. It's 2 separate processes. The validation of the inventory and the collection of the permit is an agency level fee. The actual work will be done by our field folks in Beeville.
Well, that was my question, because I've got some veterinarians that are asking that in addition to myself, you know, we can make that payment for the people when we submit.
I think that's fine. I mean, we can, Dr. Hensley and Swartz and Gene and I will work, we can, if we need to get some more information to vets, we can do that, but we'll figure it out. But you can, I mean, I think in theory, am I right, or Matt, whoever the fee was intended to come here, not.
Well, that's part of it. We want to make sure for quality control, because that is an issue. You don't want to be submitting money to do.
There's lots of discussion about that. You can't imagine how much talk these guys have spent in this room discussing what happens if they hand a $100 bill to our inspector. It causes a lot of issues. Gene specifically has concerns and issues, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can. And truthfully, I think we take it and figure it out, but we would prefer that it be done within the process that's delineated in the application moving forward. We're going to have to change our forms and our letters and our communication and all that, assuming you pass this, which hasn't passed.
Well, it's at this point too. We have an implementation process that's just working with.
We'll work that out.
Probably going to be streamlined a little more if they, you know, a lot of veterinarians are going to want to do it like I do. I have a number of out-of-state owners of these ranches that have these deer breeding operations, and we kind of do that, fill out that paperwork on an annual, you know.
Well, you're kind of like the manager of the herd anyway, in a way.
That's
We'll
right.
take the money from whoever the owner designates as the person to pay, and there will be a process delineated as we move forward, but we can be flexible.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we propose amendments to Chapter 33, fees located in Title 4 Texas Administrative Code as discussed today. I further move that notice of the proposed amendments be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve item 10B, Chapter 33 fees. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion carries.
All right, Commissioners, the last rule proposal I bring you today is located in Chapter 53, which is our market regulation chapter, where our requirements related to markets. As Dr. Ellis has discussed at this meeting and at previous ones, is a desire to ensure identification of cattle that went through these markets. As such, I bring you a proposal today that includes, and I will tell you, we've tried to fairly simply take the current one and put an ID requirement. However, in looking at the traceability program, we've tried to identify all the appropriate types of cattle in terms of ID, from those that are brucellosis test eligible to others that have a risk, which would be also your dairy cows, for which we do have an independent identification requirement for that, as well as for rodeo, recreational events, shows, and exhibition cattle. And this does correspond to what the current traceability proposal identifies for ID purposes.
Yeah, Gene's exactly right. We tried to word this to where it was consistent with the possible national animal disease traceability terminology, so that if that ever comes to fruition, this is going to be consistent. But the truth is, this is a Texas traceability. This is not about crossing the state line. This is within the state of Texas, and most cattle that sell within the state don't go outside the state. So this is a Texas traceability issue now, but we've worded it so that it would potentially be consistent with the national rule as we believe it'll be written. So,
Gene, I have a couple of questions. One main question. If passed is written and goes to the state register and for public comment, can that public comment be extended? Is 30 days the maximum?
Oh, no.
Okay.
NAI is a good example of that. They said a 45-day one. I mean, to be honest, you're better served to do it now if you'd like to have a longer time frame.
Okay.
But they have, I believe in that one, they actually came back and we extended it a little farther.
Okay. So what is a I know through my years involved in this agency, most of the time it's been 30 days.
30
but
days is.
I remember certain issues that were similar to this. Maybe we would extend that. Okay. Now, does that extension have to be made at the point of the motion, or can that extension be made by us as an agency after, does it have to be in the form of a motion now?
No.
Would the motion have to be amended, or would the motion need to be given with a longer?
Well, you know what, and the motion does say in there 30 days.
30.
So
I'm just saying, if we did at the end of the day decide to extend that, that would be part of the motion.
Yeah. You know, yeah.
Okay.
Or
I just wanted to
neutralize it. I mean, the agency, I will say, I think administratively could determine that it's important and imperative to keep making
Okay.
it. But we want to give enough time and notice. That's what I'm
Sure.
saying. We want to get right up on time.
But if they wanted to change it to 60 right now, they can do it, right?
Sure.
For example, so you
Yeah.
guys do it.
Fine.
Or whatever.
Okay, we do have 3 public comment that I'd like to get to on this issue, but before that, do we have some commissioners that have anything they'd like to say?
Just a comment or two is that I think as an industry on our side, we'll be affected the most as far as identification of it and so forth. I think as a whole, we probably have agreement in a lot of the areas of what we're looking at doing, because we're doing a lot of it at this point in time. I guess a couple of questions I may raise is in the past of going through a major switch in a program to basically we're doing mandatory ID on certain classes of animals, that I would have liked to have seen a working group at least 30 days, 60 days. I'm not talking about 6 months or a year, to make sure we iron out all the different things. I know that Dr. Ellis said there are probably significant differences. I'm not sure totally what those are yet, but there could be. But to get buy-in and everybody accept this sort of thing is, I wish we could have had that instead of going from strictly I mean, you've got to look at our industry. We went from announcing no money at all to we would continue Brucellosis program, adamantly saying that, to dropping the Brucellosis program. I mean, just curves like that all the way through. In that aspect, I would like to see a working group put together for a short period of time to make sure we got everything ironed out, how the processes are going to go, how the tags will be implemented, what the farms are going to look like, all those sort of things to make sure we have it out. A working group's done between now and the next commission meeting. Also is, if we really have traceability, and this is a couple of guys have already asked me, why was not private treaties? Brucellosis required anything moving along private treaties, whether it's markets or whatever, but private treaty sales would have to be reported also. So we got cattle moving from Dr. Vickers to myself or whatever privately. There's going to be no recording of those at this point in time with this rule. I don't know what the thinking was about that or not thinking about that. I mean, because then all of a sudden you set a different parameter for private treaty, and is there a reason for that or not? And then I guess that as a whole is the crux of it all is, and then packer cows, those that are down, how do we address it? We have some flexibility on that. I don't think our industry, we've met numerous times, there's a lot of difference what we're wanting. It's just, are we putting the cart before the horse right quick and saying, okay, here's the rule. Our industry hasn't even seen this rule yet. It just was proposed, I got it Friday, I think it was. I believe that's in the mail. And so that's the first time we've even seen this. In the past, we have worked very well as an agency. I mean, extremely well. I think of getting everything passed, you get buy-in. I think we'll have buy-in. Will it be 100%? No, not 100%. You never will on some issues. But do I think it'll be real high, 90, 95? Yes. But I think, I just like seeing that working together, work group, then come back with exactly how we're going to do it, where we're comfortable. We're not pushing this thing on somebody, then all of a sudden we stumble a couple times, and then you get everybody just rattled out there. I mean, this is basically moving from a brucellosis testing program to a mandatory ID program. Totally different language, totally different words. Question I had too is, what are we going to do with the information? I've already had that asked question. Are we going to be putting in a database immediately to have a 24/7 trace back? Are we going to be putting it in boxes that'll take a year to look at it or get put in? Those are all the questions you're going to get asked if this thing gets put in place. And I think y'all remember the meetings we've had in the past where we did mandatory ID programs and discussed that, what they were like. I think we got to, I'd rather get buy-in from the industry, everybody on the same page, as close as we possibly can, than jumping out here today and doing this too quickly. I'd rather come back our next commission meeting and have the working group come back with the agreement among those. I think it's very doable. I think it's very doable for agreement to come along with the groups, because we've met before, and majority of our guys, they're doing the identification anyway through the markets. Is it every one of them? No. And I think the question is, will a few slip through the crack? Yes, but we're letting private treaty sales on this proposal slip totally through the crack. And so you look at a little disadvantage in dollars and figures and all those sort of things. And that's my recommendation. I mean, I'm just talking out from my heart. I like us to have a win-win situation. I don't like adversity. And to me, is you get buy-in first and all that, and then you move forward with it. I think it's doable. I'm not fighting the thing at this point. I just want to see that I don't think hardly any markets even realize this is coming down the pike today.
I've talked to a couple of market owners about this, and they were really vehemently opposed to it. But that's way down there, you know. My 2 cents worth.
And you're going to have someone.
What's the big disadvantage? Is just run them back through another time and have somebody competent enough to tag them and do the paperwork, and that's a little bit of an expense that maybe you're going to have to charge a producer?
No, I think it's just working out all the how the process is going to be, and working through all those, to stumbling along and figuring, okay, why do we do this? Why do we run like currently today, myself and all of our test eligible cattle? We document everything. I want to have what their age is. I want to have what their pregnancy status is. I mail that to a lot of my customers. We write the back tag. We write the identification tag. A lot of the markets are doing that. I'm not sending it in the state every day, but they're making copies of it. I'm not sure what they're doing with it. And so the question is the real weak cows, sort of those sort of things that I think some people will be issued. How do we get the tags issued? All those things in place. What is the farm going to look like? Have we covered and dotted the T's and dotted the I's and crossed the T's? I mean, I'm just looking for 2 months of having a working group, just make sure we got everything together. A big issue we're going to have to face, if y'all look at the performance standards, is going to be these electronic health certificates. How does that maybe tie into our program down the road too? You know, that's what I'm saying is that, do we make sure we get everything tied in? Are we going to get 100% of the market supported? No. We didn't have 100% of the markets agreeing the last time we met. But those that do support, get the buy-in to them. What we need to do and get all the kinks worked out. That's my suggestion. Instead of jumping out here today, announcing this, and also having problems.
I've talked about this issue with a lot of sale yard veterinarians that are still doing sale yards and stuff, and they're all for it. Just from our perspective, veterinarians, you know, we're for an ID system for these cows. And I'd like to be part of that working group if that comes to pass, and you appoint a working group on this. I'd like to be on it. Okay.
Well, let me give you my opinion, Ken. And from the outside looking in, I'm not in the livestock market business, but I deal with the livestock market and have worked very closely with the livestock market industry. And in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, the issue here is packer cows. Is that right?
That's part of
the cows that the livestock market would not normally, since there's no more mandatory brucellosis testing, the cows that probably wouldn't be run through the chute for one reason or another because they're obviously a packer cow. I visited with Dr. Ellis about this and understand the livestock market's concern. One of the reasons I asked for the longer comment period in the motion would be not necessarily a working group, but maybe some type of stakeholders meeting between now and the next commission meeting that I'm just thinking out loud here, get 30 days of comments, and then after those 30 days of comments through the next comment period, maybe get some stakeholders together and look at this. It's my understanding that if we feel as a commission that at today's time, especially if the drought continues, that maybe we can make some type of lowering of the standards. I'm not saying that would happen, but doing some type of amendment or some type of change that maybe takes a little teeth off of the deal, that can be done during the comment period and then can be passed at our next commission meeting. We obviously couldn't make it any more strict than it is. So I would, and after, of course, we're going to hear our comment from the industry, but I would like to throw that out there as a reasonable way to maybe address this. We have historically worked with industry, and we will continue to do so. And I understand, Ken, your concern. I really do. I will say that this concept, we did have a conference call. Dr. Ellis and myself, I think Ken was not on that call, and we talked about this. We talked about, and Dr. Ellis on that conference call made this essentially this exact comment on what he feels is best for our state. So it's been known. I agree with Ken. This kind of got, y'all saw it for the first time. But I will submit to you today that I will strive as chairman to work during this comment period to make some adjustments, and Dr. Ellis has agreed to look at this and get the stakeholders involved as we've always done. Would you like to add something?
I feel like I need to say something.
Please do.
I'm surprised at the surprise about the wording, because I've been to ICA, I've been to TSRA, we had a conference call with stakeholders. We put out a press release saying that the commission was asking for voluntary compliance while this rulemaking was done. We can have a group. You and I talked for over an hour about it. I talked to Chairman. My guidance was from Ernie, and one of the things I asked was specifically was about the country cattle. We can't enforce that. Do we want to even try or not? So all these things are negotiable, but I apologize to someone if this was a surprise, but I quite frankly cannot believe that this was a surprise when we put out a press release as an agency on August 1st saying we were going to do this. And there's nothing more straightforward than we're recommending that adult cattle have a tag. Now, if y'all as an industry want to change that, change it. And we can have the meeting. But again, I apologize if there's any misunderstanding, but I just can't understand the surprise. This has been coming, and I thought I told everybody, and told Mr. Lott. We knew. So, but we'll fix it. If you want to regroup, y'all want to suspend it, delay it. But truthfully, cattle are being sold today without tags in their ear. And I agree with the chairman that there is a process to accept changes while the rulemaking is underway. And if you do decide to do something, it won't be delayed another 3 or 4 months. But I stand here as your executive director. Whatever you guys want to do, we'll do it. Now, whatever you guys want to do, we'll apologize if there's any misunderstanding. But this is as straightforward as it gets. As your state veterinarian, cattle being sold without a tag are going back to the country in Texas, and we don't know where they are or where they came from. That's all I can say about it.
Don Ward, with Livestock Marketing Association. Don, would you like to give some comment?
Can I just defer to Jesse Carver, Mr. Chairman?
That's fine.
To show me an opposition to this proposal at this time.
Okay, Don, thank you. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just have a few brief comments. I think Ken hit majority of what I want to say, but just go on the record that at this point in time, livestock markets and the folks that we've talked to and had a chance to visit with certainly haven't talked to everybody. We have not had another meeting since. Just opposed to posting, I guess is what we should say, these rules as written. Would like to see this either tabled or delayed to give that industry input. You know, it is pretty black and white. You've talked about it coming down the pipe, but I think Ken points out some good comments. And I go to the conversation that Dr. Ellis and Dr. Vickers had just at the beginning of this meeting about a lot of the things that are going on with movements of cattle. You know, veterinary, you know, the CVIs, are our vets doing the right things? A lot of these markets are shipping cattle out of state. They know the requirements and they're having to put tags in their ears. And so a lot of this work's being done already. So is the problem truly at the markets, or do we have some other things that we probably need to fix and address? And that's what I think that we're looking at from an industry standpoint, where we want to see just a little more time to iron out some of the details to move forward with this. There's certainly, like I said, the acceptance of the certificates of veterinary inspection between states, education of the private practice veterinarians on which states require what. That all boils down to records management on this end. Are we creating a program to identify a mandatory identification of all adult cattle at livestock auctions in the state of Texas with no way to manage those records or do anything with them? All pieces of the puzzle that we feel like need to be addressed at some point in time. Again, Dr. Ellis made comment about the federal system and that this is a separate issue, but have we had time to really iron out the differences and make sure that this is going to comply with what the federal rule is going to look like? I don't think that we have. Bottom line is that the market see this as a mandatory ID program. We've taken a step back to that, where we all saw what that created in the feedback from the public. If we move to this mandatory ID program, then we do have some public comment come in place and we make significant changes to that. Are we going to have to repost this rule and further extend this period? Just all things to consider. One final comment from the livestock markets side of things is that I know there's a sentiment out there that they're growing quite frustrated as market owners and independent business owners, is that meeting after meeting of the Animal Health Commission, that there's rules and regulations that they're being put under the microscope constantly. Whether that be for fee reductions, market inspections, now mandatory ID. I think Ken talked a lot about buy-in and getting these people to work with you guys, and they're committed to doing that. But when they feel like they're constantly being looked at and treated as the bad guy in this industry, it's going to be tough to do. Thank you.
I don't want perception, Jesse, to be what you said there at the end of the livestock markets being the bad guy. I'm sorry you feel that way. The perception maybe is there, and I know that the last couple meetings, livestock markets have we've been addressing a lot of issues concerning the livestock markets. But let's face it, when you stop mandatory brucellosis testing, you're going to involve livestock markets. And we talked about fees last time that involved livestock markets, and that did not pass. I think that this is a recommendation from our state veterinarian that we'll look at whether or not any changes are made during the comment period. If it does pass today, remain to be seen. But we will do our best, and we will continue to work with your industry. And I'll ask, I think, Bill, do you have another comment concerning? Okay, Bill Hyman is Executive Director of Independent Cattlemen's Association. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. First of all, Commissioner Jordan, we agree 100% with what you had to say. You stole most of my speech, so I can be pretty brief. Mandatory ID is a touchy subject, as we found out a couple of years ago. Everyone comes out of the woodwork, everybody has a comment. I think this is something we need to have buy-in from industry, buy-in from the producers, because we realize that the bulk of the expense of this program is going to be on the producers and the sale horns. And I think we need their input and their buy-in to make this work. Dr. Ellis came to our meeting 2 weeks ago. He spoke, he laid out the proposed rules to us very well. I can tell you that there was not 100% buy-in by our group. We had a definite disagreement about the Packer cows. We feel that even the federal proposed rules, if I read them right, say that you can use back tags as a way of identifying the cattle going to slaughter. We don't even have these proposed rules yet. They're still proposed. As Dr. Ellis said a while ago, that could be 6 months, it could be 5 years before we do that. You know, guys, this is a touchy subject, and before we do anything, let's take time. The next commission meeting, if we could have a working group between now and then, get together, get somebody that gets a plan that everybody agrees to, and go forward on that, I think it would be much better, and the public perception would be, hey, this is what we came up with, this is what the veterinarians want, this is what industry wants, and we're all on the same page. And I think going forward with that, we can get the public to agree. But that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for being here, and have a good one.
Thank you, Bill.
Chairman?
Yes.
Just one last thought, and by the way, Jesse and I did have a personal conversation about this as well.
Okay.
We had mandatory ID till August 1st. This is not starting from zero. There was mandatory ID in adult cattle going through markets until August 1st. We stopped it at that. This is just trying to maintain the system that we already had in place, from record keeping to data entry to utilization for traceback. This is trying to minimize the window of not having ID on animals that have immediate repercussions to our tradability. So with that said, I stand ready to meet with the group, whatever you guys want to do. But I just want to make sure y'all understand that we had mandatory ID on all adult cattle going through a market, and they were all going to the test chute, and they were getting a tag put in their ear, and all this rule is saying is they just need to keep doing that. So, but I will, if y'all want to, you do whatever you guys want to do, I'll work with the industry and stand ready to serve at your beck and call.
Yes.
This is a proposal today.
Yes, it is.
And so there is a comment period. There is a time to get input, and if we want a working group or if we want a meeting or whatever we want, that's all built into the process, because this won't happen until we have another meeting,
That's
right?
correct.
Right.
And we had one more comment. Ken Horton.
I'm a duck out of water here. Commissioner Ken Horton, Texas Pork Producers Association. I have no comment whatsoever about the cattle tagging or anything to do with that, but I wanted to use this opportunity to, it's related, but it's not, has anything to do with this. I think that Commissioner Real had a statement a little earlier about our issues related to regulations. The only comment I want to make here today is that, number one, I wish we did have a better ear tag. I wish we had an ear tag that we could use, which we do now have a tag for swine going through markets or change of ownership. And we may eventually get there through an industry-wide effort. I don't have any problem. The back tags, we're losing out on test results from a whole lot of sows and boars that go to market because they lose the back tags. And what we find is when they cross the state line, which almost all of them have to do to get to slaughter, we lose track of those tests. And so it would be a great effort if we could figure out how to solve that problem for the swine industry. The second thing I wanted to point out here is I do think that the commission, all of you, and this goes back to some comments that have been made here today by all of you, is I think we've had so much change in the last 2 or 3 years with all of our rules that we really need to sit down, step back, and evaluate what do we really need in these rules. I've gone through all sets of rules in the last 2 days that deal with swine. And we can take swine from another state, bring them into a livestock show in Texas, and they don't have to be tested to enter this to enter the show. If they come in from Texas and they change ownership in Texas, they have to be tested for brucellosis, pseudorabies. Now that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, guys. So those are the little things, the problems, and Dee will be the first to tell you that we know those things exist. We need to sit down and analyze them, and I'm sure the cattle side of the thing is probably just about as bad as our situation is. We've gone through, in 3 years, we've gone through eliminating 2 diseases from our lexicon here as far as what we have to do. And I would just say, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we need to sit down and look at these rules and decide how we need to rewrite them, how we can make them more effective. But I use this opportunity to make that message. And I do wish we could use a better ear tag. A better tag.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I agree with Coleman in that this proposed rule, it'll be a 30-day or a 60-day, and that will give ample time for, or to start the conversation going with our industry partners, and to get it going. That's all it's doing, is getting it going, and because if it's not, then we might linger here for another 6 or 8 months. And let's get a working group together. Let's do things like that, and get the comments and get it all going, instead of just letting it sit here and linger for another commission meeting.
Well, I think what Ken is asking, and I understand it.
I agree with her.
I understand their side. This particular issue it's a 1 paragraph from what I read, right? It's what we're talking about, 1 paragraph. We're not talking about Obamacare here. But
I'm not getting it.
But I think that if industry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I think that if this agency has always responded to public comment, and I, as chairman, have certain leeways to maybe help with liaison between industry and the commission or the agency. We look to our state veterinarian for direction, for traceability, and for animal health issues, and this is his recommendation. If we do have a motion, I would recommend a 60-day comment period minimum and allow some time for public comment, look at that public comment, and make any adjustments that we may need to make between now and then. If we need to change it, if we need to lower some of the restrictions or take a little bit of the teeth out of it, we can do that. Yes, Ken?
I just want to ask one question. That if this is not enforceable, like the customer you visit with, whatever, then brucellosis, was it enforceable?
No, it was not. In the country, it was absolutely not.
Exactly. Yeah. But you had a penalty, though, if you did not do it, kind of like surveillance programs you've had. Yeah, you may not get every one of them, but you as a buyer side of it better follow it, because they could check on you at certain time.
I'm open-minded. Y'all change the wording. I just want y'all to know that Chairman Morales and I mean, I didn't just write this and turn it in.
No.
There was discussions.
Of course.
This, if we'll change whatever you want to do, we'll change it. But.
Again, it says propose. It's not finalized. It's a propose. And like was said, it starts the conversation when you publish it, and then the comment period takes place. And then it's still got to come back and we got to vote on it. We voted up or down at that point in time after you do the adjustments that you need to do. But it's a proposal right now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Knowing that this is a proposal and that it can be modified, I move that we propose the amendments to Chapter 53 Market Regulation located in Title IV of the Texas Administrative Code as discussed today. I further move that notice of the proposed amendment be published in the Texas Register with a 60-day comment period.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we propose the amendments to Chapter 53 Market Regulations located in Title IV of the Texas Administrative Code as discussed today. It's further moved that the notice of the proposed amendments be published in the Texas Register for a 60-day comment period. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Gene, item 11, foreign cattle inspection fee. Would you like for me to discuss a little bit about this? Dr. Ellis, myself, industry leaders have been working on this. It is a very slippery slope when you're dealing with foreign trade. I am committed to make this work. We are dealing with issues with the State Department. We're dealing with issues concerning free trade agreements, NAFTA specifically. Dr. Ellis brought up a point when we're looking at a lot of the cattle that are exported to the U.S. are exported through the Santa Teresa export, which is in the state of New Mexico. And a lot of those cattle come to our state. So it becomes even more complicated when you look at that. This rule is vague. We're still working on it, but we want to get this thing passed, in my opinion, to give us somewhat of a leg to stand on when we could do more research and try to find the right avenue without creating a huge bureaucracy to collect this fee. This could be a substantial fee. Our cattle numbers are going down. I foresee more Mexican cattle crossing. This could be a substantial help to D in his shortfall that he's going to see in 2012 that we've all seen. So that's what we're working on. That's why it's here. And Gene, I just wanted to make that comment before you discuss whatever you needed to discuss.
Well, I bring you a rule. It's been out for comment. We didn't get any comments. As the Chairman already alluded to, this is a difficult rule to engage in. And so I think at this time we still stand looking for answers to that. So that said, I defer to y'all action.
Do I have a motion?
You mentioned the New Mexico avenue of import. Why don't we just make it any foreign origin cattle, you know?
Well, it's written.
That's what it says.
It's
Just capture how you deal with it. It's not.
Yeah. Is this passed today? What happens after today?
Ken, we don't have a clue.
I mean, I'd be honest, I would recommend just because this is a very turbulent water when you're dealing with the international activity. Our state, we interface with them from ports in Mexico that come into ports in Texas to ports in New Mexico. You know, you're dealing with a much higher level of federal issues, and this is a difficult one. Though I will say long term, there's clearly, I think, a risk here, which I think serves our need to try to ensure that these animals are looked at. That said, you know, in doing it, I think there clearly needs to be some homework in doing it.
What's the threat? I mean, what's the negative threat? Just
what negative threat?
I mean, as far as the opposition, we haven't heard any
Getting
locally.
sued for not having, impinging on international trade and commerce. I mean, that's what NAFTA is about. And so, you know, these are things. I know USDA has been challenged on their fee rules on this, though. They seem to have been able to withstand those challenges. I just will tell you as a lawyer, you're definitely getting into uncharted waters for which I have some concern.
So what are you going to do to them if they don't pay the fee?
Well, that's not the question, I don't think. And Dr. Vickers, to address your comment, I'm not as afraid of being sued as much as we just need, this is not reinventing the wheel. There are fees that custom house brokers at the border charge. The beef checkoff is a good example. The state of New Mexico charges brand inspection fees. There's fees being charged. We just have to be careful and structure this thing the right way. We have the authority, if we decided to inspect every Mexican steer that came into the state, to charge a fee regardless of setting this rule. But this would give us some help to maybe work to come up with a simple fee that could be charged. I think it says $1 a head, and Dr. Ellis and I are working on it with key industry people, and we will get an answer soon, hopefully. I would recommend that we pass this now.
Oh, I'm for it, but I think we had conversation in the last meeting, one of our last meetings, that who would be the entity that would pay that fee? Would it be the broker?
I think the key is where it would be collected. If we can figure that out, then we'll know whether it be the Mexican producer or the American buyer. I'm kind of, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the American buyer, because you'd have less problems with a free trade agreement, and the Mexican and the buyer would be feed yards and stocker operators.
Stockers, yeah.
So.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt a new chapter 33 located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code as stated today.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adopt item 11A, Chapter 33 fees. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Gene. Item 12, I don't think we have any recognition, and I don't think we have any other. I don't think we have any other public comment. I would like to say that I spoke a little bit about Commissioner Dice. We're going to miss her. She was a very good asset to this agency, and hopefully we can have her back soon to show her our appreciation of her years of service. The next commission meeting, are we going to handle this? Dee, do we need to have one, you think, in early December?
Yes, sir. I would recommend maybe this first or second week. The 6th is a Tuesday, 13th is a Tuesday. We can go to January at y'all's discretion if you want, but the 6th.
I will note, give it time with a 60-day comment period. That's going to, because by the time I publish the rule,
okay,
put it right about December 1.
Well, why don't you look at that and let's throw some.
True, we have a day late. Maybe January then.
Maybe January.
It's just, I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
I forgot there's a delay in actually posting.
Well, it takes 3 weeks to actually get it posted.
Well, I don't want to get further past the middle of December, the 1st of December. There's a lot of, December's a tough month. Let's let's start putting some January dates out there
The
then.
10th is a Tuesday of January, if the Tuesdays are still your
Okay,
preference.
we sure want to do that. Let's get some emails out for the first few Tuesdays in January and get the response and go from there.
What was that date?
January 10th.
We also will have a new commissioner representing the dairy industry. His name's Brandon Balma, their family dairy in Plainview. Will y'all contact the Brandon and do the orientation, training?
He's out of country right now. I've called and left a message.
Right.
How you spell that last?
Balma, B-O-U-M-A.
And he's from where?
They have a dairy in Plainview.
Yeah, I might know his dad was the commissioner prior.
His dad, Brad Balma, and I served in the 90s together.
With my father.
Yep.
That is correct.
Brandon.
Brandon.
B-O-U-M-A.
B-O-U-M-A. Brandon.
Brandon.
If there's no other business, I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.